Howdy, y'all, and welcome to another episode on David's Saturday Night Sitback. I'm David, and almost 3 years ago, I started this podcast having no idea what it was going to become. After the first dozen episodes came out, I was approached by a 17-year-old in the gym who told me that a year earlier, he was so miserable that he had tried to take his own life. He's alive, he's thriving, and he's joined the military, and in that moment that he told me that truth, I knew exactly what this podcast was going to become. I'm on a mission to find the hidden gems in Austin, Texas, and give them a platform with one mandate: to tell personal stories that light the internal fire within the audience as they navigate the dark nights of their own journey. My end game for this podcast is that one day I have thousands of emails from people all over the world telling me how these stories gave them courage to take their dreams, turn those into goals, and chase those goals until they become reality. That said, if today's episode impacts you, email me your story to sitbackwithdavid@gmail.com. With that in mind, let me introduce you to my guest who's sitting back with me this evening. How often do you feel like you were born in the wrong time? Like you should have been sitting across from Hemingway in a smoke-filled bar instead of staring into a glowing rectangle that never stops asking you to perform? Like the world got louder, faster, more polished, but not necessarily deeper. Maybe you were the kid who loved football or chess or books that no one else your age seemed to care about. Maybe you were the quiet one on the outside, but inside your head there's a constant razor-sharp dialogue about culture, morality, and meaning, and where all this is headed. And maybe you've wondered, is social media shaping us, or are we just pretending it isn't? Tonight's guest has lived inside that tension. He was a quarterback who didn't rely on athleticism but on mastering the playbook through discipline and study, only to lose the starting job to a freshman who would go on to win the Heisman and play in the NFL. He made an offhand joke in an English class, got punished, and turned it into a one-act play that had 300 people howling in laughter, and in the process found his way into comedy. He was a salutarian who gave a humorous graduation speech. He studied literary theory and film at Stanford. He's written essays, played chess tournaments, spent a summer processing salmon in the middle of nowhere, Knack Neck, Alaska, and he thinks deeply about how mass media, from television to TikTok, has quietly reshaped the way we live. He almost chose the military, almost chose politics, and instead he chose storytelling, because for him, comedy isn't just jokes. It's a way of confronting a world where nothing seems to matter, and yet somehow everything does. Sitting back with me today is Trevor Lewis. Trevor, thank you for who you are. Thank you for being here, and welcome to your episode on David's Saturday Night Sitback.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
What's going through your head right now?
Starting with Hemingway and feeling like I was born in the wrong time. I mean, that's spot on, but not an original thought, as you know, Midnight in Paris kind of made clear. But yeah, I thought that was cool. And I was laughing at the lack of athletic ability and the chess stuff, because there's definitely, I'm the nerd who has tried not to be, my whole life. So that's I think it was a good intro.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Bill, for the help. And Luke. I talked with Luke, too.
You talked to Luke?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You didn't tell me.
I also tried to reach out to who I believe is your mother, Jen.
Yeah.
But she didn't respond.
Oh, they're actually, my parents are traveling, so that's probably why. They're in New Zealand and Australia right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Are you happy?
Happy how? Okay. I am happy, actually. I think I'm generally a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. But I think especially the last couple months, I've gotten momentum going with the stuff that I kind of felt like I always wanted to get started on. And so it's nice to have some exterior validation that the path that I set on a couple years ago and then I'd been thinking about forever has sort of started to pan out in the ways that when I first started thinking about it, that it's all kind of feels like it's starting to form in some way, which is good, because now I know what to focus on, because I know what I've learned in the past is working. And I don't feel like I'm just throwing, like they say, throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks or whatever.
Yes,
I feel like I'm a little bit past that phase now, which I'm excited about, because I like focusing. I don't know what Bill shared or my brother, but I think I come from being a very structured guy, And this whole journey for me since high school has kind of been unlearning that and relearning how to be more creative and free flowing and all of that. So I feel like I've kind of got my feet under me now in terms of how to operate that way, which is fun.
Awesome. Personal question for you. Are you still dating the girl from the restaurant? Or did you ever go on a date officially?
No, not since she went and traveled. So we have talked. So I think I will see her again at some point. But we are not dating. Haven't got on another date.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is she back?
She is back in town. I think she just got back last week. So, but I don't think we're not on the same trajectory that we were, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Relationships change.
Yeah.
And she had just moved here, right?
She had just moved here, so I think it would be a lot to just move here and start, dating a guy or whatever. So
Yeah. I think for anyone, you move to a new city, like you sort of, at least me, I can only speak for myself. I wouldn't want to move to a new city and then immediately get locked into a relationship. However, it depends on who the person is.
Sure.
Because if there's someone that I feel like I've been looking for my entire life, or not my entire life, that's a bit of a stretch. But if they're checking off a lot of my boxes, I think I would also just be like, well, fuck. Who cares that I just moved here? Let's go for it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. They talk about like a time and a place for everything, and I think that's the other one of the things that I've learned. Just sort of accept whatever happens. There's because you don't know what's about to come, and I think that's another thing that I've tried to learn and internalize is that, like you don't know what's coming next week, so.
Yeah. Knowing what we're going to be talking about tonight, what would your pitch be to the audience for why they should stick around today?
Yeah. Okay. I listened to a ton of podcasts when I was in high school and since then, and I was obsessed with people's life stories and how they thought about the work that they were doing, no matter what field that they were in. And I feel like I've gotten so much out of that, just hearing like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of people talking about themselves and how they got to where they are and how they think. Like I'm huge on how you relate to what you're doing. That's really important to me. So that's probably what I'm going to give you today, if that sounds interesting to you. So keep listening if you want to hear that.
Dude, I feel like my growth has, in the last 3 years, has skyrocketed compared to like the prior 6. Because to your point, I've get to the privilege of getting to sit here and listen to 157 different people's stories,
right.
How they messed up, how they picked themselves up, what they learned from it. It's. I made a joke once that hosting a podcast is the most selfish thing I can do.
Yeah.
It's just like fucking an influx of knowledge for me. But then what's cool is I get to turn around and share it with the world or whoever goes to listen.
No, that's what's awesome about this medium. And I know that like Joe Rogan has said the same thing over and over again, that he feels just lucky to do his job because of what you just said, that he talks to all of the most interesting people in the world for hours, and that's educational for him, and so that's cool that you've had that same experience.
Yeah, definitely. Who is Trevor? If we strip past all of the job titles and all the external stuff that we could find on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, or your Instagram, who is the man underneath all that?
Okay, I think one word, writer. That's I think the archetype that I relate to the most. And I want to get my thoughts and my work out there. Is what's most important to me. That's what keeps me going. Like for example, was I was hanging out with someone the other day. I just met them, and we were talking about skydiving. Like, would you go skydiving, not go skydiving? And for whatever reason, my feeling was, I know that the chances of dying are so slim, but in a certain way, I'm like, I almost wouldn't want to do it yet, even if the chances are so small, because I mean, the main reason is I would like I feel like I have work left to produce and get out there that I'd like to get out in like the next 5 or 10 years. And so that, and that's just like the most important thing to me. So whatever, you know, just designing my life around that is what that's what I care about fundamentally.
The person you were talking about it with, had they been skydiving?
No. I think we were talking about it because we were talking about my parents in New Zealand, doing these action adventure type of things. Like, showed her a video of my mom and my dad, doing like the bungee cord jumping thing off of a cliff. And then so it kind of came up through that. Yeah.
Could I give you my skydiving pitch?
Go for it.
I've been 7 times. I'm get this on packed in here. Not a sponsor. Me and my friend Gwen went for our 21st birthday, I want to say, and I've been an additional 6 times since then. And when you're driving to the airport, you're really excited. And then you get there, and maybe you even look up and see someone from the plane coming before you, you know, floating through the sky, and you're like, oh shit, this is like, we're here. Then you sign a waiver. Then you put your parachute on. Then you get in the plane. Now, if you're anything like me, you're getting really nervous. Then it's your turn to jump.
Right.
You jump, the tandem on your back. They more sort of give you a gentle shove out.
Mm-hmm.
And you get this 30-second free fall that's not like any roller coaster.
Sure.
I don't know. My friend, one of my friends, I'll leave him unnamed, he has gone 180 miles per hour on his motorcycle, and he said that's the closest he's ever got to feeling like he was skydiving again. So you're just falling at this accelerated rate. And then what happened is the tandem pulls the parachute, and you have about 4 to 7 minutes that you're just slowly floating back towards the ground. And during those 4 minutes, as the wind is blowing past your face and through your hair, if you still have some, you just get this feeling of complete tranquility where for the first time in my life, I felt like everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to work itself out. We're all going to be fine. And it literally, like, the wind blows off everything that's been keeping you up at night and stressing you out and causing you to bang your head against the wall. So my encouragement would be, please go eventually.
Oh, yeah.
You will love it. Maybe save it for a day when you're stressed out. Great day to jump out of a plane.
Stressed out, go skydiving?
Seriously.
So it gives basically the adrenaline rush is kind of like, I mean, it's almost like medicine in some way.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's the mix of the high adrenaline to the immediate stop of it.
Yeah.
Where you get to float for a few minutes.
Yeah.
There's something about going from one emotion to another that quick.
Yeah.
That it almost like resets your nervous system.
Well, that I can relate to, the moments of high stress. Like, I really enjoy those. And you reflect on what happened, what changed in me in those moments where all of a sudden, you know, a different gear kicked in, and I was, you know, it's the extra level of awareness that you have in those moments is like I think you need that every so often for sure.
Yeah. I have some pictures of you.
Okay.
And we're going to continue down this, keep figuring out who you are. And I think we'll get part of the answers through these. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you want to hop over to YouTube for the next like 5 to 15 minutes, all the images will be embedded on the video. For those who refuse to hop over to YouTube, as I hand you these pictures, will you give us a little description of what's going on in each of them?
Okay. Yeah. Is this from Luke or is
Yep.
Okay. That's cute. What am I supposed to say?
Just a brief description of the picture.
Yeah, we were in Italy playing chess, and we did this everywhere. But I guess my dad found a good location for the picture.
That is a great dude. When Luke sent me that, I was like, "What is this? This can't be their like childhood backyard."
No. No, this is a special occasion for sure. That's fun. I wonder what other ones he sent, because there's pictures of us playing chess on vacation everywhere. Like, there's one in particular when we were a little bit older, where there was this like kind of like the human-sized chess pieces, and we're like hanging on them almost. So that's fun.
How do you still play chess as frequently as you did in the past?
No, but Luke plays all the time. So he plays online games all the time, and he's beaten some grandmasters and stuff. So he's really into it.
Oh my god.
Yeah. He was always better than me at chess. So it's funny that this is the place that he would go to, because he definitely likes to bring up the things that he's better than me at.
Well, he did just send me 12 pictures of you losing chess, so I'll give you that preface. Does he live in Austin?
No, he lives in Charlotte. That's where my parents live too.
Okay.
So they moved to Charlotte after I graduated high school, or actually right in the middle of my senior year, which was fun. It was fun for me because I lived with my aunt and uncle, who were way less strict than my parents. So my senior second semester in high school was like the dream, because I didn't have to text anyone about where I was going or all that. Anyway, they live in Charlotte now. My brother went to UNC Chapel Hill, and he's 2 years younger than me. He's bigger than me now, so different than in the picture.
Luke, if you ever come out to visit your brother in Austin, Texas, I'd love to lose to a game of chess too.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy that he's beat some grandmasters. That ain't no small thing.
No, yeah, and he, he takes it. Well, one, he just has the brain for it, but it's also indicative of our interests. Like, I can remember back to when we were growing up, when we were little, we had a sunroom with the computer, and there was a chess zombies game that essentially it was like a video game, but it was teaching you how to play chess. You were playing chess, and he would play that for hours and hours and hours. So I knew then that like he was going to be the chess player, and not me, because I would get bored. I would go do something else.
Yeah, I couldn't play. I can sit and play maybe 3 to 5 games, and then I'm very much ready to move on.
Yeah, but people love it though. I mean, I have friends. I think it's kind of a guy thing right now. So people are just playing chess. I go to open mics and people are playing chess at the open mics against each other. It's like on their phones.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen people go on stage and continue to play chess while they're on stage as like a bit almost, but they're actually like, chess is back.
Every now and then I go and hang out with the comedians at Shakespeare's on a Monday night.
Uh-huh.
The next time I go, I'm fucking bringing my chessboard with me. I was there 2 weeks ago, and I can't believe I didn't see a single chessboard out. What a great way.
Well, okay, they're not. Yeah, but they're playing on their phone. They're not. The chessboards aren't out. Okay, bring a board and see who you can get. Yeah.
Have you met Isaac yet? Kane Brown.
I don't think so.
If you ever cross paths with him, he's a really good guy.
Okay.
He'll be at the live event. By the way, if you live in Austin, Texas, I'm doing my first episode in front of a live audience today. So if you're listening to this and it's like 10 or 11 o'clock, go over to dsnsp.com, buy your tickets. You set the price. You have to pay a minimum of $1, but you can pay up to $10 million if you want. Bring a friend. If you already have plans with friends and you're like, oh, I can't go, I have plans already, push those plans back 2 hours. Bring your friends to the live event. This is really important to me, you guys, because I'm shining a light on a monster that is living in our teenagers' heads that I don't think we talk about enough. So come out for the mission. Some storytelling, some live comedy with Isaac Kane Brown, some live music with Anne Brienne Nielsen. It's going to be a good time.
Let's go.
Let's move on to the next picture.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good one. All right, so this is in Alaska. We're in, where are we?
Naknek?
So this isn't in Naknek. This is in the Kenai, it's near the Kenai fjords. Fjords. That's how you say that. But yeah, during COVID, looking for stuff to do because I was just sitting around my parents' house, and one of my friends from high school was going to go work for this salmon processing plant as a quality control technician. And he ended up deciding not to do it, but I was like, that sounds awesome. So I got in contact with whatever people he had been in contact with, and then I was there. And it was a really, I think it would have been a bizarre experience in any case, in any year, but especially during COVID. I mean, COVID had just hit. So, and I think that might have been one of the reasons why I was able to go get a slot to do this, because I didn't have any experience as a quality control technician. I can talk about how that ended up working out, because there's some stories that came from that, like having no experience doing this. But yeah, they flew you out there and they had to quarantine you for the regulations around COVID. So I was just in a hotel room in Seattle by myself for a couple days, and they would slide food under your door like you were in prison. And it was shitty food. Like, can I curse? I'm sorry. Okay. Like it was bad. Like probably worse than prison food. I don't know what they were doing. So I basically didn't eat for a couple days while I was lying in bed. And it reminds me of that early scene in Apocalypse Now where Martin Sheen is going crazy in his room. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. They're like playing, I think they're playing This Is the End by The Doors, and Martin Sheen is like just going crazy in his room and like smashing stuff. But it wasn't quite like, I mean, I was watching Mad Men and just like waiting. And then you got on a plane with everyone who had just gone through the same quarantine. And most of the people are like, they're seasonal workers doing like blue collar labor. That's what they're there for. And there were only a handful of people like myself who were like college educated, and all of those people were the quality control people. So we had our own little group of like 6 who were early 20s, kind of in college or whatever, who were doing that thing. And then everyone else just came from a totally different slice of life. And then I remember getting to Naknek, and the Alaska that you see in pictures is so beautiful, like the most beautiful place in the world, whether it's the mountains or the glaciers or the water, the forests. But Naknek is like the most desolate place on Earth. And I think that's what most of Alaska is like. I mean, Alaska is huge. It's like several size the size of Texas, you know? So you're just out there and there's nothing, and you're in essentially a compound where everyone's staying in these little trailers. Again, things that made this a bizarre experience. Normally, you can go into the town. So there's a bunch of these little processing plants all along the same river there. But because it was COVID, we couldn't leave the compound. So it was like, again, going back to the prison analogy, it was like that. So I have a video that I sent to my dad because he would get it. There's a spot in the Great Escape movie, which they parodied in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Steve McQueen is throwing his baseball out near the wire, basically to see if he can get out of the line of sight of the Nazi guards. And then they spot him and shoot at him, and he grabs his baseball, and he's like, I was just grabbing my baseball. So anyway, that's what it felt like to me. and then you were working. I was only there for 6 weeks. And what was impressionable upon me is that most of the people who were there working with me do this. Like, one, they would go to another, because the season there, it was for sockeye salmon, which is a particular breed of salmon, is really short. But then when the season is done there in Naknek, most people will go on to the next place where they would be there for like another 12 weeks. So they do like 18 weeks of this really grinding labor. You're working 100 hours a week in these really sweaty, loud conditions. And I was there for 6, and I was like, okay, I'm done. But I made a lot of money quickly through that, because it's just minimum wage, but most of it's overtime. So, and they paid for your food while you were there and your living, because it's just their compound. So everything that I made, I just took, and then I went with 2 other people who I met there who were other like early 20s quality control college educated people. And then we just like traveled and basically spent everything that we made in Alaska after that. But again, it was still bizarre because all these vacation touristy destinations, whether it was in Denali National Park or down where we're fishing near the Kenai Fords, they were empty. So when I got down here to the Kenai Fords, I took the train down there, and the other people that I was with had left, taken the flight home. And so I arrived alone, and then I went to a sandwich shop to get a sandwich, and it was like noon or 1 o'clock, and the guy perked up because he said, "This is the first customer that I've had all day." I might have been the first customer he had all week. I don't know. Because normally the cruise lines would stop in at this town, but there were no cruise lines that year because of COVID. So it was just a really strange experience. And I would like go hiking on my own, and there'd be no one out there. And I'd bring my bear spray, and I'd be like, okay, I hope nothing happens to me. I have my phone. I think I have connection. I don't know. But then I ended up meeting spontaneously another one of my friends who's kind of similarly wired as me. I guess something like this sounds interesting to him. So he had gone to Homer doing construction. I hadn't seen him for a long time, but I grew up with him. And so he saw when I posted that I was in Alaska, he said, "Oh, I'm in Alaska too." And then he came and met me down here. So we went fishing and then caught this, it's total luck, but caught this like 150-pound halibut. And then we, they gave us all the meat, and we ate it that night, like fresh halibut. So yeah, that was fun.
That must have had a ton of meat come off of it.
Oh yeah. Like we boxed up, the meat, and I wanted to, like, as a nice gesture, send it to people who had done me favors over the years. And that ended up costing me a lot of money. I didn't realize how much money it would be to like send 10 different boxes of halibut to people across the country. But yeah, it was more than I could eat for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a buddy in Ukraine right now, and I've been thinking about sending him a box of something. I don't know what yet, but that thought did hit me the other day of like, fuck, how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
Better send him something quality. So
right.
It's worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll come back, and I have some questions on some of these pictures we'll come back to, but let's show you that one next.
Okay. This is nice. This is something that I haven't talked about in a while. Okay. So the guy on the right is Alex Gomez, and I went to high school with him. So I knew him. It's crazy. I don't know if anyone else has had this experience, but Instagram had basically just started when I started middle school. So when I went into 7th grade was basically when Instagram launched. And then in those 2 years, 7th and 8th grade, there were basically local people who kind of became Instagram famous for the middle schoolers. And Alex was one of those people just because he's a cool guy, I guess. And so I knew who he was, but then I went to this Jesuit Catholic high school in the city, and he transferred in his sophomore year, and pretty soon we became friends. He invited me over to his house for a birthday party that he was having, and then stayed the night for a sleepover. That was a thing that we did then, I guess, if you had, because we were underage or whatever. So you'd get beer that we would all drink supposedly without our parents knowing, and then you would stay the night so you don't have to go home drunk. And then that first night that I went over to his house and hung out, we went up to his room, and he had a guitar sitting there, and I was like, "Oh man, you play guitar?" And apparently he'd kind of set it down for a while, hadn't been playing. And anyway, we got it out and started playing together, and that turned into us becoming really close friends and writing songs together all the time. And then we'd start playing at open mics just around town. And so that's what we did. So this is at his house. I got my Gibson Les Paul out, making it look super picturesque, I guess. It's funny because I still kind of dress that way. But I was more of the guitar player and he was the singer. Sometimes I would sing and he would play guitar and vice versa. But yeah, that was a really fun experience. That was one of my early creative experiences for sure. And that was kind of me transitioning out of being an athlete who thought I would go into politics into more of like, okay, whatever this creative thing is, I want to do more of that. Now, the funny thing is, I like probably a year after this picture, he was getting more and more serious about it and was like, we're going to be a band. We had other people who were in the band with us now, and we're going to take this super seriously. And I had all of these different interests, and I was a big overthinker. So I just kind of backed off and was like, nah, man, like, I'm not going to make it in music. I'm going to make it in something, you know, it's going to be something else for me. But I kind of felt like, I was a good guitar player, but I knew that the people who became great, like, would practice for, 6 hours a day or something like that. I especially the people that I looked up to, who are more of like the Jimmy Pages and Eric Claptons, who like really, really got good at guitar. And I knew that I wasn't doing that. So I kind of felt like I wasn't going to get to that level anyway. I liked the songwriting aspect, but not like the technical playing as much, even though like at my age I was solid. And so, but he stuck with it, and he has this band now called The Backfires, and they're signed to a label. They tour across the country, and that was already picking up for them when I was in college with like nothing going for me. Basically, I was like trying all sorts of majors, and I would like, I remember in particular this one coffee date I was on with a girl, and I started talking about this, and she was like, "Do you regret not staying with the band?" And I was kind of, I said no, but at the time I was kind of like, maybe, because he was having a lot of fun and having success. So, and he's still out there really, really working hard. And he actually comes to Austin every so often for his touring. And we always catch up when he's back here. And it's always really exciting to hear the stuff that he's working on. And he'll basically show me demos of what the next album is going to be. So he's a really good friend. So this is cool that you brought this out. And I don't talk about it with people that much anymore, but it was definitely a huge chapter in my life for sure.
That's cool. I'm glad Luke sent that one. Let me ask you, before I show you more pictures, let me ask you a couple of follow-up questions real quick. Your parents, you mentioned they were really strict. Now that you're an adult.
Did Luke say that too or no?
No.
Okay.
Now that you're an adult, how does that sit with you? Like, are you happy about their strictness because of the man it maybe helped you turn into? Is there a little bit of resentment there? Like, Mom, Dad, why don't you just let us do more? Like, what's your thoughts about that?
No, now zero resentment. And there probably was at some point, but I'm now totally grateful. And not necessarily because I think that what they did was the best parenting strategy, but it was solid. And what they did was they introduced me to the idea of standards and integrity. And that was always really, really important to them. Like, never tell a lie, never break your word. And the thing that always perplexed me, and this is the part that I'm really grateful for because I feel like it set me off on my journey creatively and where I think I'll continue to go, is I guess they would consider themselves spiritual people. I mean, maybe my dad wouldn't, but my mom probably would. They're both agnostic, but they grew up with their parents taking them to church, and they both decided for various reasons to not do that for themselves and to not raise their kids that way. And yet the kind of old Christian, like,
values, maybe?
Yeah, the values and the idea that, like, no, absolute morality, I think, is a philosophical term for it. Like, they're versus relativism, right? And this is there's a topic that came up in my religion class in high school, because I went to a Catholic school. The idea that, like, the moral rules are the moral rules and you absolutely have to abide by them, that was something that they instilled in me and in my brother, and yet there was no God behind it. And so that totally perplexed me, especially because I had friends who, they were Catholic, they did go to church, and yet they seemed to be way more loose with what they considered to be right and wrong, or even not if they considered it to be right and wrong, how they would act and what kind of decisions that they would make, and the ways in which they would be comfortable sometimes telling a lie, or sometimes be comfortable doing whatever, drinking underage. That was something that, like, when I first did that, I was like, whoa, this is a total change in the way that I'm going to be from now on. And so that, anyway, that probably is the genesis of my philosophical interest, definitely the creative path that I'm on right now, is sort of trying to square that, because they exist, my parents, I think, at a certain place along the continuum of where we're at as a society right now, where you definitely still have probably half the country that is very religious, but half the country that is totally not. And that is really interesting to me. And even people who are religious, and I grew up really interested in politics too, like especially the Republican Party, especially when I was growing up, maybe it's not the same anymore. Republicans always made it a point to point out how Christian they were. And because that's the people they were trying to attract in the primaries, like in Iowa, especially, is, oh, I need to show how Christian I am so that I get that base to come out and support me, the evangelicals. And yet you would watch those same people talk about how Christian they are, lie or go back on their word or all of these things. And so anyway, that relationship between people's actions and what they say they believe in is really, really interesting to me. And I think that the perspective that I have on it is totally shaped by my parents and trying to figure out, why do they try to raise me this way? Why are they the way that they are? Why are other people the way that they are that I know in my own life? And then who do I want to be? And if I hadn't had that, on the one hand, that's speaking to the moral perspective. And then the high standards thing, like, if I spoke the wrong way grammatically, my dad would make a big deal out of it, or, you know, just stuff like that. And I think that side of things, like the hard work, trying to be the best version of yourself, some level of sophistication, or like, those are things that my parents also instilled in me that I feel probably more grateful for, because I'm certain that not everyone has that. And so for people who want to do something with their lives, like, I think most people have to figure that out for themselves. So I'm grateful that my parents sort of nudged me or pushed me in that direction, you know?
Yeah. I saw this a similar thing you did when I was raised in a private Christian school of like 350 people between freshmen and seniors. So it was a very small school. I was begging my parents to get out of there. Finally, my senior year, they let me go to the local public school, and they were very hesitant about this because they thought that all these evil non-Christian kids were going to corrupt me. So I go to this public school, 3,000 kids between all four classes, I believe, and the quality of people at the public school versus the private school was astounding. And my circle of friends was so tight, and they were all such good people, and they didn't even necessarily call themselves Christians. And that was the first time in my life where, similar to you, I got sort of confused because I'd meet Trevor, and he tells me he's not religious, and yet of all my friends, he's never broke his word. He's never lied. He always shows up for me. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a stereotype too, that at some of these private Christian schools, and this wasn't necessarily the case at mine, but I've heard this to be true, that like it's these private Christian schools that sometimes have the worst drug problems and that kind of thing. So I think it's just people just get confused at a certain point.
Yeah.
So.
And is Luke your only brother?
Yes.
Is there any other siblings?
Yeah, it was just me and Luke.
In 7th grade, when Instagram launched, so you were how old? Or what year
12,
was that?
13.
2012?
Yeah.
So I would have been 25. So I was very much out of school. I'm curious what your answer to this question is, because you were in school. Over the first like 1 to 2 years after social media came out, do you remember observing any changes and recall what those were?
In myself or in other people?
More so in other people, or sort of in society as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I think was strange about it. Everyone getting iPhones and being on Instagram right as they entered adolescence was the way that people who were in my exact grade grew up before that was when we had video games, but most of our socializing was outside. Like it was still like that. We weren't exactly latchkey kids, but still I would take my bike over to my friend's house and we'd play football or basketball or whatever. And then with social media through middle school, I don't see it's tough because also just going to middle school is a change in itself. Or all of a sudden people are into girls and like who's talking to who and blah, blah, blah. And I think Instagram probably just placed an additional stressor on that everyone, you know, because you're posting pictures all the time and seeing how many likes you got, how many people are commenting, and we're all figuring out what all of this means at the same time and how we're supposed to handle it. And I think, I observed a change in myself, I guess, to turn it back on me, in that having a phone, I think I have an addictive personality. So the idea that anyone could text you or message you at any moment, and if you come home and you don't start right on your homework and you're like, I'm going to watch TV, and you set your phone there and all of a sudden it starts buzzing and you wait for it to buzz again and you wait for it to buzz again, you can just kill so many hours doing that. And then your brain gets into this weird funk where all of a sudden the idea of doing your homework now sounds like the most impossible thing in the world. And I think that, probably affected everyone that I know, in that through middle school and high school, even people I know who are very smart, those same people, I think, without social media and without the iPhones probably would have like read and learned a lot more in those years than they did, you know. And then you start getting into like basically just because everyone would do well in school because that's important. But you're doing well in school in a way where all that matters is getting a good grade so that you can go and get into a good college and all of that. So everyone was kind of like trying to like game the system in such a way. And I remember there's this national merit scholar thing where you take the PSAT to qualify for that. And at my high school, I had a teacher who just pointed out that ever since our school had let people bring phones into the classroom, we have not had a national merit scholar since. We would have one or two like every year up until that point. And then just total break. I mean, maybe we've had since I've graduated, but when he was talking then, it had been a couple of years, he's like, we have not had one since. And so I think, that has to have played a role, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I maybe we'll never be able to directly correlate it, but that's a pretty crazy coincidence.
Right.
I will show you this next picture now because I think this plays into your childhood quite a bit and into your young adulthood. This is you, correct?
That is me. This is in 8th grade.
Playing football, baby.
Playing football. Yeah.
This little guy. Sorry.
Well, that's what I thought was so crazy. Yeah, when Tony Hinchcliffe and Sam Talent were saying that. And that's why I wanted to pull Sam Talent out next to me, be like, stand up next to me. Because I'm skinny now. I'm skinnier than I was. Actually, my parents kind of pointed it out at Christmas that they're like, you're looking real skinny. Have you weighed yourself? And I had just assumed that I was still 175 pounds, that I had been 175 pounds since high school. I was like 185 at one point where I was lifting for football. And then when I stopped, I was down to 175 and I assumed I was still the same. And then I went and weighed myself and I was 156 and I was like, whoa.
Oh no.
So I'm definitely skinny, but I'm not small. But yeah, at this point I was probably 6 foot 165 or something like that in 8th grade. Yeah.
Did you choose football? Did your parents want you to play? How'd that get started?
I chose it. So, my dad still is in some ways, but definitely when I was growing up, huge football fan. He went to Virginia Tech. And so did some of my uncles. So we were huge Virginia Tech football fans, especially. And also the Dallas Cowboys, because my dad grew up in Texas, and so he raised me as a Cowboys fan too, which was fun because all of my friends were Redskins fans at the time, now Commanders. So I was like the one that everyone hated from that point of view. But yeah, we would go to games all the time. And my dad, I don't know, somehow I got into my head that I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a quarterback at Virginia Tech. And so the first year that I could play football, which was second grade, I think, I lobbied so hard to do it. My parents never gave me any pushback, but before that, I was playing soccer. And yeah, the first chance that I got to quit soccer and play football, that's what I was doing. And I made sure that I could be a quarterback, and I would so be out in the yard throwing all the time. And yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted for sure.
I sometimes wonder how life would have turned out differently for me if my parents had let me play football. They were
they didn't let you.
Very, very against it.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. I think I got a lot out of it, but yeah, all the research on concussions and all, and then the concussions. I mean, I played rugby too in college. Like I can't say I had to have had some effect for sure.
So there is something I'm rereading my notes with from Bill real quick. So he mentioned that you were a quarterback in high school, and that you weren't athleticism was not necessarily one of your talents.
Yeah.
What you did was you used your mind and your dedication and training to become an excellent quarterback, and that you drove yourself to excellence by mastering the plays. Is that pretty spot on assessment?
Yeah, so I mean, I tell people that the most locked in I ever was from when I started training camp freshman year, so like August of freshman year through like the next year or so. So from the first day that I got there, and there were so Gonzaga is where I went to high school, very competitive football team, and we play in the WCAC. Other schools in that conference are like Our Lady of Good Counsel, St. John's, and all of these schools send basically their entire roster to go play college football every year. And so I knew that's what I was getting into. And there were two other quarterbacks who also came in as a freshman. So I knew that I had to beat these guys out, and then eventually I would have to beat out guys who were the grade above me as well. So when I showed up, we also had a new coaching staff that took things very seriously. So Randy Travers was our head coach, and I think he still is the head coach at Gonzaga. And then Danny Schechter is the offensive coordinator. And a lot of people on the coaching staff had played in college, had experience coaching in college, and they ran our team like a college program in terms of lifting, film, the way that we would study the playbook. And so when I first got there, the senior was coming off of, who's the starter, Nick Johns. He went to go play at UVA. They were coming off of the last coaching staff, which they did fine, but they weren't as competitive as probably our potential was in the conference. And so from the get-go, there was basically a vibe shift in the program that I got to get in on the ground level of. And so when they started teaching the playbook, I would take the metro home from school back home every day and would not be on my phone the entire time. And I would just sit there and go over the plays. And we would learn new plays every day and then have to come back and be able to recite them in terms of what the route tree was and the reads. And then we would go out and do it on the field. And I knew the playbook better than the starter and the backup, like that whole spring training session. So I was a freshman, 14 years old, just starting. So that was how I kind of got my foot in the door and was able to win the job in terms of being like the other two quarterbacks who were freshmen were both very good players, and they transferred. And the irony is that they went to other schools and ended up becoming the starters at those places. And I think they both ended up playing in college, but I stayed there because I wanted to start at Gonzaga. And the guy who was a year above me, Sam Brown, he became the starter the next year after Nick Johns graduated, and he was a starter for the next 2 years. And he was more talented than I was, for sure. He ended up playing at Butler. So I never got to play and then these guys who I started with, they played at their high schools and went and played in college, whatever. So that just ended up being my journey. But yeah, Bill's totally spot on in that. I mean, I never missed a lift. I never missed a lift. I was never late for a lift. I was at every film session. Like, I was basically like, I'm going to go all in on this. So they're not going to be able to say that my work ethic is the reason to not give me the spot. You know, that was what I did.
Why did you want this so bad? And it's good. It's good. I'm not like sitting here being like, you crazy mofo. Like, I'm just so curious. Like, what was the why that drove you to study the plays on the way home, to show up for the gym, to be on time? What was in it for you?
Well, okay, it went back to the dream that began when I was young, which was I'm going to be the quarterback at Virginia Tech. So, and I'm a strategic thinker. And so, I mean, even just the decision to go to Gonzaga in the first place, I got that idea because I was watching the Rose Bowl when I was in 7th grade, and they showed the starter for Stanford, Kevin Hogan, and they show hometown, what high school he went to. I saw McLean, Virginia. I'm from Vienna. It was a town over. I was like, oh. And then he was playing at Stanford, and then he went to Gonzaga. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go where that guy went, because our local teams, our local high schools, Marshall and Madison, I could have gone to either, were good, but they didn't send people to play college football. So I knew that I had to get myself into a situation where that's what they do. So I pushed my parents to go to, that was not an idea that they had, because they're not Catholic and they didn't want to pay for private school. So I kind of like really, really pushed them. This is what I want to do. And I knew that I would get myself into a situation where if I did succeed and I did come out on top, I could fulfill that dream of going to go play in college. And, so I mean, it was totally internally driven, but in terms of the why, I don't know, because everyone has a dream of going. Not everyone. So many of us and so many of my friends still thought they were going to be in the NFL or the NBA or something like that when they were younger, and I remember, especially from the basketball point of view, would go to these basketball camps. So there was this Coach Wooten basketball camp, and I think it's Joe Wooten is the younger guy, and then he has his dad Wooten. Anyway, they both coached in the same conference, elite basketball programs at O'Connell and DeMatha, and they would run this summer basketball camp where you'd play basketball all day, and while you were there, they would show you guys who were on the team at those schools at O'Connell in this case. And then there were guys who would come back who went to go play in college, and they would give these speeches about basically how they got to where they were. And what they would do at these basketball camps is they would teach you all these drills, and they would give you a big packet. And it was like, this is what you have to do every day if you want to get to where I am. And it was basically giving people like 4 hours of basketball homework to do every day on your own, shooting, dribbling, and all that. And I remember that I would get those packets and then come home and feel guilty when I didn't do them. And again, thinking strategically, I kind of picked up that, Bill's saying that I wasn't a great athlete. And I guess I'm not. I think I'm a solid athlete. But I'll just say it's rich coming from Bill, like there's videos of, anyway. He was a cornerback, and we have a friend, McGuire, who's really, really athletic and is a wide receiver. And there's like videos that we have that we still make fun of Bill for, where we would run routes on air. So like I would be throwing and McGuire would be running, and Bill would be and McGuire would just like totally break Bill's ankles and then like be in the corner of the end zone and catch the touchdown, So, I was probably between the two of them athletically, but I knew that if I was going to succeed as an athlete, I was going to succeed at something that was going to be more mechanically oriented. And so that's why I gravitated to being a quarterback, because there was the mental side of things with the playbook and understanding the reads and processing and all that. And then there was the athletic side where yeah, it's great if you can run, and especially more and more so by every year. Like quarterbacks need to be mobile, so I probably would have never succeeded anyway. But when I was growing up, there were guys who didn't move around a whole ton, and they could get by just on being accurate and throwing to the right places. So I kind of figured out, okay, I can do this. I feel like I can succeed at this at the college level versus basketball, where I was not tall enough or athletic enough to play. So that's why I went all in on football when I started in high school. I didn't play any other sports. And again, but going back to why did I want it so bad? I don't know. Because I knew that what I really wanted to do at the time, I was thinking politics. But I do think that there's a correlation there between, for whatever reason, I remember this tidbit about Richard Nixon that he also like pushed himself to be an athlete. I think that I think there's certain people who just like expect a lot of themselves, and athletics is one way to demonstrate that. And then you know, this is something that you learn. It's like you succeed at something, you get credibility from that, and I really thrived on that attention, you know, and that's not necessarily the best thing to say about oneself, but you know, you go out there and you make a good play or you become the starter or whatever, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, hey, you're that guy. And I think that it was also a way, because going back to being, you know, the guy who grew up playing chess and like the nerd who's trying not to be, to demonstrate yourself athletically was another way to be like, I can hang with the boys. And I think a lot of my friends were athletes because I would play on these competitive teams, whether it was basketball growing up or football. And even around them, I was like the quiet and reserved guy. But if I could go out there and play well, I could still be a part of the group. Yes. So now, honestly, that was probably that might have been the biggest reason out of all of them. It took me a long time to get there, but I just sort of realized it right now.
You and me are alike in some ways.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I was raised in the church, and I played the piano on Sunday mornings. And when I was 19, I moved out of Sacramento, which is Northern California, about 2 hours from the Bay. And I moved to playing music for this church in a really poor part of the Bay Area. And that church was the first church where I thought, this is what it's actually about. Because when people came in, they came in because they just lost their home, their spouse just went to prison, their son just got killed. These people were desperate for some sort of solution. And so we would play on every Sunday morning in front of 600 people. And when you looked out into the crowd and you saw a third of the people just on their knees in tears because they were having a moment with what they thought was some sort of spiritual entity. And then after church, when everyone's leaving, and I've never said this out loud, but since you just said it, I'm willing to say it too. When people would come up and just give you the biggest hug and just say thank you for today, my pride or ego, whatever you want to call it, loved it, because I was sitting there in my head being like, I just changed that person's life. So I get the performative aspect of how it is very rewarding, whether it's to, you know, for you, it was more entertainment. For me, I was trying to sort of bridge this gap between these people and their higher power. But it was a very similar thing internally for both of us, I think.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, yeah, who doesn't want someone to come up and give you a hug after what you did, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's where I found community too.
Yeah.
I was so close with the other members of the band. We were all between like 18 and 24. And I would say that band was my first group of real friends where I felt like I could be completely David and not be judged for it.
Yeah. Well, that part is special, and that's when you're actually in the right place is when that starts to happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not even sure that felt like that. I mean, a lot of my friends I did play football with, but it's not like I didn't feel like that on the team. I felt like that when we were hanging out separately.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's talk about when a certain freshman joined the team your junior year of high school.
Yeah.
Is this a good moment for that to transition?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I told the abridged version of the story on Kill Tony. But yeah, I was a junior going into my senior year. The season had finished, going to the off season. And so I had been listed second on the depth chart, but behind Sam Brown. But there were two guys a year younger than me, Sam Sweeney and Jared Morrison, who were also very good players. And I had kind of gone into the offseason thinking, all right, I only get one more shot at this thing to be the starter. With 1 year of playing in high school, you basically have no chance to play at a high level in college, and I had accepted that. But I still really wanted that one chance to sort of, get to the mountaintop and play at that level in high school. And so I was expecting that I was going to be in a competition with those two guys. And then in the off season, and it was funny because I remember the first time that I met him, Caleb Williams showed up with his dad at a Gonzaga football function. And I was with my coach, Coach Shaq, Danny Schechter, we called him Coach Shaq. And I remember shaking his hand and meeting him. And I kind of felt right then like, God, it's going to be him, isn't it? Like, because they were really recruiting him to come play because he was, he was such a talent. And he was already developed physically, mentally, all that. He was ready to play. So then as the off season was first starting and we were about to go into our lifting program and going out on the field and throwing routes and all that, I remember I got a text from my coach, Coach T, and brought me into his office, and Coach Shaq was there, and Coach Shaq was already like emotional. I could kind of tell like this isn't good for me. Whatever's about to happen, I'm not coming out of this room a winner. So, and it was, I forget exactly how it went, but essentially what Coach T said was, hey, we want you to move to a different position. We want you to move to tight end. And the pitch that he gave me was that we needed tight ends, which was true at the time. But we needed tight ends. So, and essentially what they were saying was we want whoever starts to get multiple years to start so that we don't have to start over again in a year. And we don't want the quarterback room to be too crowded as they're going through the offseason, because they want whoever's going to be the starter to not be splitting reps too many ways up until the point where they become the starter. And so I was the odd man out from that point of view. And I was basically straight up like, this is because Caleb's coming in. And he was like, yeah. Like we were like, we need to make sure, like, he still needs to be in a competition with these other two guys, Sam and Jared. And it was a competition through the whole training camp and whatever. But they were like, well, we can't have him splitting reps with another guy as well, who they had already felt like at that point, I guess, with me, that if it was going to come down to me starting for 1 year or Caleb starting for 4 years, that it wasn't going to be me. So I walked away from that. And, as Bill said, and as I was talking about in terms of the work that I had put in, where I had done football basically over everything else, took that hard. And so this kind of became the basis of my college application, actually. Should I rework the rest of the story around that? Maybe start from the end and go backwards. Does that sound good, or should I just keep going forward chronologically from does it matter?
What feels better to you?
I'll tell the story as I told on my college application, because I think it's a good way of summing it up and getting through it efficiently. So at training camp in Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, we do a sleepaway training football camp every year. It was kind of like Remember the Titans in that way. I don't know if you've seen that, but and at the end of the week of all day football, we would have this skits competition. And I got so into that, where you'd make fun of people on the team and on the coaching staff. And the first chance that I got to do that was my sophomore year. And no one else on my team really wanted to take it seriously. So, and they were like, Trevor, you just go do it. So everyone else was doing these team skits. And I went up there basically myself for a while. And then there was one other guy who came up with me, Cameron Warfield. And anyway, I basically did stand up as a sophomore as my introduction to these guys on the varsity team. And I got laughs. I was comparing people on our coaching staff to the cast of The Longest Yard. So I forget exactly how I did it, but the biggest laugh was that there was a guy who on the coaching staff who was a police officer. So I was like, this guy is the cop. And then there was a guy who had been to prison. And I was like, and this guy's the convict. And then when I said that, everyone just like exploded. And then there was a guy who was like a little bit like animated and flamboyant. And I was like, and obviously this guy is like the transgender cheerleader on the sideline, and like the place just erupted. And so that was the first taste that I got of like, oh, there's something that I can do with this. So then the next year I was like, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take it up a notch. And my quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, Coach Shaq, he's a smaller guy, but also a really vibrant personality. And he had said that no one's ever really gotten me at these sketch competitions. They just come at me for being short. Huh. So I took that as a challenge to be like, all right, well, I'm going to get everything else about you too. And so I would go to our quarterback meetings and our offensive meetings, whatever. And I would just start writing down all these things that he would say. And I just like made a note of everything. And so then we got to Mercersburg that whole week, because I think we didn't have our phones. So during our free time, I would just be in bed, like working out what I'm going to do for my impression of him. And so I had that. I was basically going to come on, and we would have basically before our games, the coaching staff would come out and give their big speech. So so the idea was I was going to come out and be Coach Shaq. Another guy was going to come out and be our head coach. Another guy was going to come out and be our special teams coordinator. And so I had that locked and loaded. And the funny thing was that Coach Shaq was actually on my team for the sketch competition, but he was like, no, I want you to make fun of me anyway. And so he would leave the room when I would do our rehearsal. And then, so he didn't know what he was going to get until I did it. And then another guy on our sketch team, who was on the team, Billy McKinnon, he was going to do the impression of Coach T. And he basically wrote out this whole thing for him, which was hilarious, our head coach. And so he was going to come on after me. But then Billy got sick. And so he was like, I can't do it. So I did Coach T too. So for the first 5 minutes of our sketch, we get like 10 minutes total. It's just me up there. So I come on as Coach Shaq, and then I go back behind the curtains, put on sunglasses and a hat, and come out as Coach T. and for 5 minutes, first with like the stuff that I'd written for Coach Shaq, and then doing Billy's material for Coach T, I was just killing, like slaughtering. Like the place is just going nuts. And it's funny because I have the video, and I would watch it from time to time thinking like, man, can I really do this? Because I was, from a football point of view, it's really hard to be the backup quarterback. And it's really hard to be the backup quarterback when you're also splitting reps with the third string guy and the fourth string guy, because they're giving almost all the reps to the starter. So when you come on, you're coming on totally cold in practice or whatever, and expected to perform. So I was struggling through a lot of these periods. So the fact that I got to come on and like do something in front of the team that was like, oh, this guy's got something, was just really validating for me. So then I took that experience and I had that kind of planted in me. So by the time I got the bad news in the office with Coach T and Coach Shaq a couple months later, I knew what I was going to do next, which was to explore this other side of me. And so I came back to the office like a week later with Coach T, and I basically told him all the reasons why I think he's wrong. And wrong about basically taking me out of the competition this early. And the main thing was that, like, dude, I've been splitting reps with 3 other guys for like the limited backup reps. I don't think it's fair to like judge me based on that and to take it away from me this early. Like, you should at least give me the spring training. And then what's crazy is that he was basically like, you're right. And it kind of felt like he was going to give me that opportunity. But I already had it in my head that I was going to leave that conversation quitting or at least stepping away. And I didn't expect him to be receptive to it. I thought I was just going to say that and be like, and now because basically what there was a rugby tryout that same day. And I figured, okay, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go play rugby. And it's crazy because I remember that moment of like him being like, you're right. And then me, without thinking about it, being like, and by the way, there's a rugby tryout right now, like happening right now. I'm already late for it. I'm going to walk out right now. I'm going to go do that. And then he was like, and then obviously at that point, that was like burning the bridge. Because he was like, are you doing this to like get back at me, you know, or to show me? Or is this because because that's what you want to do? And I was kind of like, that's what I want to do. But what it opened me up for was rugby was fun. And we had a big program at Gonzaga that was really successful. The varsity purple team would like go win national championships. I was on the varsity black team, which was it was good. It was a great experience, and everyone on the team was really good, but it was not as intense as being on varsity purple. So, or even just being in the off-season program for football. So with those other days of the week, I started exploring more of the creative side, doing more of that music stuff like we were talking about with Alex earlier. And then I wanted to do this one-act play festival that our high school would put on. And it was student written, acted, directed, and it was produced by 2 of the teachers who were there. And so I wrote it in like the next month while I was starting to play rugby, and then submitted it. And I kind of remember I was thinking that I didn't know what a one act was. I thought it was like an SNL skit or like a long SNL skit. But I submitted like 10 or 15 pages, and a page is supposed to be equivalent to a minute. So I thought, 10 or 15 minutes, that's good. And then the teacher who I submitted it to, she said, this is great. Now where's the rest of it? Like I was supposed to have, I guess, a full half hour or something. So then I went back and I rewrote it. And then I wasn't in the theater department. So basically everyone else who was doing a one-act play were people who did do the GDA, the Gonzaga Dramatic Association, and we're in all the plays and stuff, and they casted all of the people who were also in the GDA. But I just casted 2 of my friends who I thought would be good, or 3 of my friends actually, because Alex was one of them. And so we just had a blast. Everyone else's play had multiple scenes, so they would sort of have to like do the like they would cut the lights, and then they would change the set, and they would come back on, and they had bigger casts. But we just had one location, so it was one set, and it ran straight for 30 minutes, and it was just 3 people. And so I would just sit with like 3 of my best friends at the time, and we would just workshop it in real time. And it kind of became a problem because the producers were like, you can't just keep changing everything as we were going. But we were having our first experience of doing what they do at a place like SNL, where you write the sketch, you do a read aloud, and then you rewrite based around that. And we were all just having so much fun coming up with ideas and all that. And then by the time we put on the play, it was a hit. And what was cool about it was everyone else's play was really good, but ours was clearly just different. It came from a different point of view which was not as theater-y, for that's not a word, but so for lack of a better word. And it was darker. It was more suggestive. Like we were playing with themes and we were basically going up to the line as far as we could. And we were working with the teachers who were producing it to be like, can we say that? Can we say that? Can we say that? And so there was teenage drinking. There was references to sex. Sometimes there was some cursing. And it was just something that like was different than all of the other plays that were happening. And we would get these huge laughs. And I ended up actually acting in it too, because Alex decided to step away. So I wrote it, I started it, I directed it, and it was just this small group where it was clearly, I had so much fun doing that. And there were a couple other experiences that were kind of like that, where we had a speech contest in my junior year, and I wrote an essay that won this like humor award through the Mark Twain House. So I had a couple of those experiences in a row of like, oh, I can be funny and smart and also interrogate these deeper themes. So my senior year, I didn't play any sports and I just focused on getting into college and doing stand-up. And so, you know, I've only been doing stand-up for a year, like seriously, but I did do a couple of open mics when I was in high school. And I didn't do it at all in college, and I didn't do it my first couple of years since I've lived here. So, but like, I guess that's 8 years ago now when I was a senior in high school. I did like 4 open mics, and that was the start of my Common App application for schools, which was I'm in this desolate bar in Arlington, Virginia, with random people who are like in their 20s, and yeah, I'm the only one here my age. And you go up, you're basically just performing for the other comics. And that's something that they don't really talk about with the open mics, is it's a horrible setting for comedy. You're in these rooms that are not really built for comedy, and you're just performing to other comics who are half paying attention because they're thinking about their own set or whatever. So I was basically like, I just kind of set the scene for that at the beginning of my essay. I was like, oh, how did I get here? And then I kind of reframed it all through what we've been talking about so far, about going to Gonzaga because I wanted to be a college quarterback, making it through those 2 years, having my big discovery of I like writing and performing and being funny on stage, at the sketch competition, taking that through to the spring where I did the one-act play and the speech contest and the humor essay. And that had taken me on the path to being there in that empty bar. And yeah, it was just weird because then, yeah, my senior year, other than trying to get into college and then other than exploring the stand-up thing a little bit. And that was the other thing too, is that you'd go up and you just totally bomb doing stand-up. And so, whereas I had a lot of early success with the stuff that was at my high school, that was more, I guess, I don't know, I'm playing a character or something if it's in the play or in the sketch competition. So I was figuring out at the very start, okay, what is this thing? Stand up. And then I kind of just started to feel like, after being so performance oriented and structured and all that, just starting to feel like a bum for the rest of my senior year. And then even into college, even though I got into Stanford, I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't have anywhere near the same drive that I had when I started playing football. And so it was a long time to figure out how to get that back. And that's kind of what since then has been for me, going through college, post-college, and then recently getting started with stand-up again.
Is it true that part of the reason you did the one act was because you made fun of a kid in English class and it was a punishment assigned to you?
I think that might be apocryphal.
Apocryphal? What does that word mean? Apocryphal.
Well, they talk about, there's like stories that you hear about famous people that aren't true.
Okay. Or maybe he just didn't know.
No, what did happen, and this is, okay, I mean, the reason why Sorry, Alex. I think we're good enough friends that I can talk about this. But Alex and I sat next to each other in English class. And there was basically just this thing where we were both interested in the same girl and taking her to prom. And 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 he ended up taking her even though I'd expressed interest in her first, but I basically never got to ask her because he did, because they saw each other out at a party. And anyway, and he felt bad about that and all that, because we were really tight. And our friendship, I think, has totally recovered since then. But anyway, I was giving him a hard time about backstabbing me in class, to the point that like our teacher kicked us out. So you have to go down to the counselor right now and talk this out. Because I was definitely being a dick about it. And so that's why he stepped away from being the character that I had cast him as, and then I stepped in, which in a strange way, like, I was excited about. Because you weren't supposed to act in your own play. That was one of the rules. But because we were so close to the thing going on, I was like, no one's going to know these lines except for me.
Yeah.
So that's like the darker Machiavellian side of myself, which I've tried to tame over the years. Because there was definitely a part of me that was probably needling in a way to get that result. And so, I don't feel great about that. It's like, maybe he messed up. I definitely messed up too with what I just explained, but it was fun to do the play, and, it killed. So, things work out like they should have.
In summary, things work out. You and Alex are friends. You're doing stand-up. You're in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Things work out. You don't strike me, though, as... Were you a bully in high school?
No.
Okay.
No.
You didn't come across like you were?
No. If anything, I would get bullied. Like, I remember we were on the bus. Is like another girl's... so Visitation was our sister school, and Georgetown Visitation, and they were having their dance or whatever, and it was like the first time that I had been invited to go on one of those things, because I just didn't know those girls very well. I knew more of like the girls that I'd grown up with, and they were like chanting like Trevor Lewis or something like that, but like to make fun of me. I remember on the bus. So like, yeah, no, if any, yeah, I was, yeah, so it was a weird time.
Yeah.
But no, I was not the bully.
High school was a weird time.
High school was a weird time.
Before I ask you my next question, you want another drink or
Sure.
something else?
Yeah.
You want the same one or a different one?
Give me the same one.
I'm going to stick with the same one too.
Oh boy, next picture.
I accidentally showed him.
Do you have a paper towel too?
A paper towel, you said?
Yeah.
Yes. I forget if I asked you on the phone, but have you done a podcast before?
No, first time.
Are you enjoying yourself?
I am enjoying myself.
Okay, good.
Hopefully everyone else is.
I was going to say, if you're not, I guess we'll wrap this thing up real quick and get you on your way. So to wrap up the high school part of your journey, this was the last picture that Luke sent me, and I believe you were giving a speech of some sort here.
Yeah, so that's my salutatorian address. And that was, so at graduation, honestly, probably, the main thing that kept me motivated in high school at all was, I had a good grade point average. I was like, okay, I need to come out 1 or 2, because if you're 1 or 2, if you're the valedictorian or the salutatorian, you get to give a speech, and the salutatorian opens, and then the valedictorian closes. So I ended up number 2, and I mean, that was fun because you're speaking in front of like 1,000 people. So there's a whole St. Al's Church is the church on campus that we have there. And so that place is filled. And then there's overflow in our theater too, where they're live streaming it. So, 1,000 people watching live. And yeah, no, for whatever reason, I really wanted to give a good speech and I wanted to be funny because, and this relates back to me. I referenced, I did a speech contest my junior year of high school and actually ended up becoming a joke for this speech. All right, I can get into that. But so my junior year speech contest, our teacher, Miss Free, love her. She had opened it up. The idea is you're supposed to advocate for something. That's what the speech was supposed to be. But she introduced us to this idea of satire. And we read Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, which is like from 200, 300 years ago. And that essay is saying, what it's saying literally is that to solve the problem of poverty in Ireland, the poor should kill their babies and eat them because there'll be fewer mouths to feed and it'll be food for the people who are eating them. But it's a joke. What he's getting at is that the upper class, like the Anglo upper class from England, or maybe whoever's living in Ireland who has that same Anglo is basically like they're totally blind to the actual suffering of the people. So there's this dark, humorous slant in there where you're not saying what you mean. And she said, you can try this as your speech, but basically you'd give the speech in front of your local class and then you'd go give it in front of the entire class of 250 people in your grade. She's like, I'm not going to advance you out of our local thing because the satirical speeches don't play well to the wider audience. So I took that as a challenge to be like, well, screw you. I'm going to do it and I'm going to win. And so I ended up giving this speech about how we should all win the speech contest. And it was basically poking fun at participation trophy culture or socialism or something like that. And then I won the contest. So, and then it killed that. So I'd been told that with these graduation speeches that like it's really hard to be funny. So I was like, all right, again, screw you. I'm going to try really hard to be funny. And then I was. And so I remember Miss Free, the same teacher I was just talking about, she emailed me after saying, because we had a Harvard creative writing professor who was supposed to be the big keynote speaker. And she was like, you blew him out of the water. Like he basically saying that it was impossible to follow because of how things went. And then I had another teacher, Mr. Latois, my senior year English teacher, who was like, and this I've learned to be my strength is that I was able, and it was the same thing with the one act play, able to balance being like deep and introspective and having reverence for a situation with also the lighter side of having fun, wherever that joke comes from. And he's like, the way that you're able to balance that was really cool. And there was another thing where one of Mr. Leary, one of our basically he's a guy at the we have a staff at the front of the building who basically just like coordinates logistics for the school, and I walked off, was feeling the adrenaline, and he was the first person whose hand I got to shake besides the people who were on stage, and he was like, I can't wait to see where you're going to be in 10 years. And then that's been in my head ever since then.
That's 2 years away.
That's 2 years away. Because for the longest time, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be where he thought I was going to be in 10 years, you know? I just sort of, and especially once I got deeper into wanting to explore this creative path, I was like, it's going to be, you know, I'm going to have to string out longer this like idea of not really knowing what you're doing and trying to get things going without getting any sort of like positive feedback. So anyway, that's this picture. Okay, I'll tell you the story that I used in the speech, going back to the speech contest. So junior year, it was the first time we actually had to write the speech that we would give for the speech contest. And so Miss Free, who's my English teacher, she had a policy that we had to choose our topic by a certain deadline. And if we wanted to change our topic after that deadline, we had to give her $1 to donate to charity. So a couple days after the deadline, I went up to Miss Free's desk and began reading her a draft of my speech. And she reached into her purse, pulled out $1, and said, "Please change it." like she turned it around on me. Anyway, yeah. So that this speech again, as I had basically gone through the whole year, like doing a handful of open mics and bombing at that, not playing sports anymore, kind of as the capstone on the whole experience of the speech actually working. It definitely planted in my head. As also, this was the first time that I was being myself, like with besides the open mics where I wasn't doing well, because like with the sketch competition and with the sketch competition, with the one act play, with the speech, I was playing a character. So this is the first time that I was being myself and made a room full of people laugh. And so it had been in my head since then that I could do it at some point. And, here we are, I guess.
I don't know where else to insert this question, so I'll just sort of plant it here as we transition from high school to what came after. But what is a idea of morality that you got from the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Who asked that question, or who gave you that, Luke or Bill?
Bill.
Okay. It's funny. I don't think, sorry, Bill. I don't think that I have, I don't know that I really did get an idea of morality from Lord of the Rings specifically. But I guess to caveat that, it was definitely the series I was obsessed with when I was younger. Like, we probably watched it at too young of an age because I would have nightmares about the orcs. Like all the time. Basically be like the orcs are coming to my house and killing everyone that I know. It was like but I was obsessed with the movies, and there is an idea in there which is what basically Frodo is tasked with, to go on this journey which has the ultimate implications. It's the triumph of good over evil. And you don't know if you're going to get there, and yet the fate of the world is at stake that you have to. And you're fighting temptation the whole way. You're fighting obstacles. And so I guess that idea of the journey and staying true to yourself, and that it being worth it, and that there is some great outcome that is dependent on you, is something that I still relate to and feel. And then just in general, I guess the epic scope of the series on film. I didn't really read the books. I tried one time, but they end up in like some weird elvish forest for like tens and hundreds of pages. It's like
I know. I tried to unsuccessfully.
The Hobbit, much more fun read. But in the movies, I guess it's like cinema at its peak, where it sort of transmits to you that life is this grand thing with grand implications. And I think that the experience of watching that and dreaming about it, even if they were nightmares, and waking up thinking that, probably sticks with me and probably makes me, I guess, I don't know, like feel more compelled to do something extraordinary or just different or unique than probably most people feel.
I wonder if when you guys first met or like earlier on in your friendship, he said that because he mentioned that when you're with your friends, you'll come up with random ad hoc quotes from places like Ulysses and say, "Hey, this situation sounds just like that." And so I wonder if you went through a phase for a couple months or a couple years where you were finding these parallels in life between whatever you and your friends were going through and something Lord of the Rings related.
Um,
I could be wrong, just speculating.
let me brainstorm for a second. Okay, Lord of the Rings. There's a. I mean, definitely would quote the movie, but probably in a humorous way. Like the two big ones. The first one definitely used this with Bill and my other friends from high school because we went on a trip to Ireland. That was our high school. Like it's basically instead of going to the beach, our high school class would, after you graduated, go to Ireland and you'd be divided into these groups. I was with all my best friends in Ireland, and then there's this moment in the movie Lord of the Rings and Fellowship early on where Merry and Pippin are at their first human bar, and then a beer comes out in a pint glass, and then one of them says, "It comes in pints." So I probably said that like 100 times when I was in Ireland.
That's hilarious.
That, or there's another, again, from Fellowship is the funniest of them all. So the one that I would quote the most, but I think it's the same Merry and Pippin, like Aragon or the Night Stalker guy. He's out walking along, taking the hobbits, and they had already stopped for breakfast that morning. And the hobbits are like, "When are we stopping again?" And Strider, yeah, Aragon is like, it's like, "We already had breakfast." And then they go, "What about second breakfast?"
Yeah.
Or elevensies. Yeah.
Tea time.
Yeah, exactly. So like, what about second breakfast? That's one that like my dad and I use all the time. Or the other one is like potatoes. You know what I'm talking about? Samwise at some point. Yeah.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yeah. Oh, that one. And then God. And then this is, I think, okay. I guess it becomes funny again when they're with Gollum in, I don't know if this is in the second or third movie, but they catch a fish, and Sam is cooking the fish, and Gollum's like, "No, I like them raw and wriggling."
Yeah, that's a good scene as well.
Yeah.
3 very good scenes.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. So I mean, those like, so I definitely use the quotes a good bit, like more than most people, mostly because, and I find this interesting, and it goes back to, I guess, some of the stuff you're touching on in the intro about like a relationship to mass media and everything. But I think that, my dad quotes stuff all the time, and my family, my uncles and all that. So whenever we're together, we end up like quoting the same Seinfeld quotes, the same Simpsons quotes. It's so much to the point where it becomes like a tag-along joke where someone will say a line and then one of my uncles or something will go like, "Number 7," because like basically there's like only like 12 that we say. So the joke is that we have them numbered. So I don't know. I tried to model that. And what I found is that like my generation does not care about that. So when I do that, it's like basically just for Bill or whoever like watches the movies, and other people are like, "Why are you quoting? What are you talking about?" Yeah. And why do you think that's funny or interesting? But I like it. So
I love this about you. The Christmas before last, one of my sisters gifted another one of my sisters a like piece of wall art, I guess you could call it, where it does say potatoes, boil, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yeah.
And I think there's like some pictures of all the different vegetables listed, and it's just cool, random, whatever. Great quote. Great quote.
Oh, it's perfect.
Oh, I was going to ask you 2 follow-up questions and I forgot. Both Lord of the Rings related. and I forget the first one, so that one is now irrelevant. Um, do you think that we're all on our own hero's journey of sorts?
Okay, great question. Yeah, so in high school, was definitely like getting into Joseph Campbell and like the Carl Jung stuff about like archetypes and journeys. And going back to my parents and relating to them. Because my parents are both very talented and hardworking, and they ended up they're both accountants and would both talk about how much they hate it. And I've always felt inspired to do something that is a unique path, whatever that ends up being. And then would think about kind of the counterexample of that, which is most people who end up in a good job, a stable situation, and then that becomes their life. But is there something within them that is calling them to something higher? And then if there is, like, when do you reach that point where you're like, this is a true calling? This is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to put everything into this. Or is it like, okay, I want to try painting, but I'm still going to live a normal life and raise a family and all those things. And painting will be something that I do, but it's not going to be everything. I'm not going to starve for it, you know? And so thinking about me and what I wanted to do, who is for sure someone who wanted to go out and try and do something like just insane in terms of the risk tolerance or whatever, relative to people like my parents or people like, honestly, most of my friends from high school and college who have gone on to be very successful already, but doing things like tech or like finance, that where the path is charted out for them. And because I don't think that the most insane path is for everyone. But I do feel like no matter what you do and what your situation is, that on some level, some sort of journey kind of materializes for you if you're true to yourself. And I think that I can see it in my parents for sure. And there's someone who's at the end of that, they're close to retirement and they're very happy. And they ended up living in this neighborhood in Charlotte where they love their neighbors and their kids are out of the house and their kids are hopefully going to be, very successful. Both me and Luke doing whatever we end up doing. And they're at this place now where I hope and I feel like they're like arriving at this place of peace. Like we did it and now like our golden years are here and they're going to be great. Even though like times were tough for us as a family relating to each other and trying to understand each other. And there's a lot of like, just, there's a lot of arguments, there's a lot of disagreement, and there's a lot of like feeling like things are stressful. At one point, and this was a big stressor, like basically my dad's job was very uncertain as I was entering college. So the idea of going to a big expensive private school like Stanford,
Sorry.
that was like a big thing for us to sort out. But now I feel like it's like now all that the time passed, the experiences happened. I grew from wherever I grew from and they did the same. And now I don't know, like it feels like times are good again. And so I think everyone probably has that in their life, right? Where you don't know how things are going to turn out. And sometimes things are good and sometimes things are bad. And you have to get through those bad times to get to the good. And that's, I guess, going back to the Lord of the Rings, like that's what the whole thing is about, right? Like Frodo faces so much adversity, and has to keep staying true to himself and keep pushing. So everyone has that, you know?
Yeah. I will, I don't mind saying this because my brother is the only person in the family who listens, but even if the family member I'm about to reference did hear this, I'm fine with that. My sister fits into the category of sort of a mix of your parents and you, in the sense that she's full time in the healthcare industry, but for several years she's been building a like a watercolor business. So
Oh, cool.
whether it's selling her original prints or taking those and turning them into like stationery or stickers or whatever she wants to do with them. She's been running this business for years. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm in the gym and I get an email and I open it up, and I don't know if she knows that I signed up to be on her email distribution list, but I am. It's my way of keeping in touch with my sibling. And she sent out an email saying, I'm shutting the business down. And essentially it didn't get to be as profitable as she hoped it would, considering where she's at in the business. And I'm not gonna lie to you, man, I'm a little worried for her because I feel like her 9 to 5 pays the bills,
Right.
but her 5 to 9 brings her joy.
Right.
And so I'm like, what? I hope she replaces this with something. She says she's gonna keep painting, but I feel like it's almost like, what if I had this conversation with you, but at the end of it, I said, Trevor, we're not gonna do anything with it. We're not releasing it. You know what I mean? I feel like that's where she gets a lot of her joy.
Right, putting it out
sharing.
into the world. Yeah.
So I hope she finds her next thing.
Me too.
Yeah, and quickly.
Yeah. So there's this gosh, am I gonna forget her name? It'll come to me in a second. Or I can look it up if it gets real bad. But there's Twyla Tharp. She's a choreographer. She was on Andrew Huberman's podcast. So, and basically what I do with podcasts, and I'm sure people can relate, is I follow a bunch and then I don't listen to most episodes like for most people, but then I'm like, oh, that one looks interesting. And then I click on that.
Yep.
And so something about her seemed intriguing. And so I listened to it, and she's talking about the creative process, and she's like in her 60s now and has had a whole successful career being a choreographer of classical dance. And she was really insightful on the podcast, and then she had a book about creativity that I started reading. And there was this concept that she introduced to me called scratching, which when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, that. And it's basically like when you're in the dark and you don't have a flashlight and you don't know where to go, you just have to start scratching to figure out what's out there. And I think that can relate to people in any situation, but just specifically on the creative thing. And again, like I didn't start the stand-up, even though it was something that I had this history with and I'd been obsessed with in the past, was not something that I thought I was going to do coming out of college. I thought I was going to get into filmmaking and screenwriting. But that first year and a half, 2 years that I was post-college living here, I was scratching, trying to work on these screenplays, and I would work on them with Bill. I'd call him all the time. We would talk for hours about the ideas. But then it felt like we couldn't get beyond like the first 10 pages of the thing. We can kind of talk about it on like a higher level, but then not know. I wouldn't get to a place where I felt like, no, that's actually good. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, which you probably shouldn't when you're starting. I would compare everything that I was writing or coming up with to the best movies that I had seen, and I kind of figured out, this is going back to my high school experience, where you can do something that makes your friends laugh. You can do something that makes your high school class laugh because that's the level that you're at. But if you're trying to be a professional creative, you're trying to do that at the level that's like the 0.01% of things that exist, you know? And so I would put the pressure on myself when I was working on these screenplays with Bill to be like, is this that good? And so I would really overthink that and be hard on myself. But in the process of that was going out to watch stand up and then feeling the butterflies of like, that's what I want to try. And then I did an open mic and it was awful. And I didn't do another one for like months. And then I did another one and it was awful again. I didn't do another one for months. And then it really wasn't until July of last year. And up to that point, I was still telling other people I'm going to be a filmmaker. But I had a friend, his name is Eric Zhu from Stanford, and he's really bright, like insanely bright. And he's a computer programmer at an AI company right now. And I told him that I was going to visit New York. That's where he lives. That's where most of my friends live. And he said, next time you're back, I want you to do a set. And I hadn't done one in like 6 months. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. So then I started doing an open mic every week again, getting my material ready for what that would be. And then Bill decided to do it with me because he's done stand-up before too. And so we both signed up for this New York open mic, and we invited all of our friends, both of us. So there were like 30 people there to watch us, like both of us college friends and high school friends. Like our high school friends are basically the same, and then our own college friends. And this open mic did not expect that this many people would show up. Because like most open mics are just, like I said earlier, just the other comics coming in, you kind of just like fart around for a bit. But then all of a sudden there were 30 people there in the audience, and the hosts were like, what the hell is going on? And they said, who lost their fantasy football league? Right? Because we all look like these kind of like, I mean, these like very like corporate yuppie people showing up to this open mic. They're like, clearly this is what happened. Someone lost their fantasy league. And I was sitting in the front row and I was like, no, I'm a comic. This is what I'm doing. And they're like, okay. But they put us on last so that our friends would stay for the whole show. And Bill went and he did great. And then I had, like, literally that week in Austin I got laughs for the first time with a bit. And I was like, okay. So I had that one. And that was like 3 minutes long. But I knew I had to do 5 minutes. So then that was actually the first time that I did that DoorDash joke that I ended up doing on Kill Tony, was there in front of my friends. And I remembered thinking, yeah, I mean, I was nervous in a way that I hadn't been before for stand-up. I think because I was in front of my friends. And I was thinking, I don't think that any of my friends would have picked me out to be a comedian based on who I am around them. It's all internal. And so the idea of doing that in front of them was like I'm literally going to be changing my perception, their perception of me in this moment, if I'm to be successful. And so that was a lot for me. So I ran to the bathroom and kind of just like looked at myself in the mirror because I was afraid, even though I had just done that same material, except I'd done the first joke, which is like 3 minutes long. And then I had the DoorDash joke in my back pocket. I was thinking that I was going to forget it all, even though I had done it a couple days before. And even though I'd been running it all over in my head, I was like, I'm going to forget it all. But then I went up and then I did well. And honestly, like the first bit that I did is about the Oedipus complex. It was okay. Honestly, probably, I mean, I got some laughs. I think it's just making people uncomfortable. But then I did this pivot and I was like, all right, new topic. All right, this is going to sound so out of context if you haven't seen the bit. So you should go see it on my Instagram or watch the thing on Kill Tony. But then I pivot. So after I've been talking about the Oedipus complex for 3 minutes, I go, all right, new subject. In my experience, black people. And then like everyone starts cracking up because it's such a bizarre turn, yes. Right? And there were black people in the audience too. and then I say are less uptight about race than white people are, and then the black people go, true. And I was like, all right, great. I was like saying this like out loud. I was like, I got them on, I got you on my side already. And I was like, now stay with me. And then I did the joke. But it went over so well for everyone, for my friends, but also for these other people who were in the room, including the black people, where I was like, oh shit, like I got something there. So then I came back to Austin a couple weeks later because I went to New York to visit my friends. I went to upstate New York where my grandparents lived to see them. And then all my high school friends, we went to San Diego. And then I came back. So it was like a couple weeks later that I came back to Austin. I was doing my first open mic. And it was back to that situation where there's no one there. And I was one of the last people to go up. But there's this comic, Courtney. You can follow him at like Simply Courtney or Along for the Vibes on Instagram if you're curious about him, because he's really good and he's been doing comedy for a long time. But he hosts this show at Tiniest Bar in Texas on West 5th, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then he does another show on Saturdays, and he does a show at Cold Town on Fridays. And anyway, this is my first open mic that I was doing since I'd been back in Austin, and everyone had left except for the host, Courtney, and then his other bandmates who were up there playing music between sets and who were also black. So I was like, I wasn't planning on doing the joke that night, but then I basically just like turned around and did the joke to them because there was no one there to listen to it. and again, they loved it. So then after the show, Courtney, who I'd never met before, was like, hey, do you want to come do the show that we're doing at Cold Town on Friday? So I did that. And I was expecting to do a bunch of open mics to basically work out my material on the road to whatever path that I was going. And then the very first open mic that I got back, I got invited to do my first time being a part of a lineup. And then I did the same joke again on Friday and it worked. And then basically what I started figuring out was doing that same joke in front of different rooms, different groups of people. And because it's touching on this sensitive subject, which is race, I'd find that different rooms responded to it differently. So like one time I did it in front of this group of all like UT people who were professors and students and so on, and they were all white.
Uh-oh.
So and I had started off with the Oedipus joke, totally bombed. And then I did the same thing. I was like, all right, in my experience, black people, and everyone, especially I think because I had just been starting off rough, was like, oh no, like what's he gonna do? So then I felt for the first time. So when I said are less uptight about race than white people are, I like felt it in a moment. I said, you see how tense all the white people are? And then they laughed. And I was like, oh, so then I got that. And I kind of realized, oh, so anyway, it was a process of working out that bit that I didn't think would be anything. Even though the story had actually happened to me years before when I was driving DoorDash in Vail. And then it turned out being the thing that when I signed up, like ended up working. But I guess my point is going back to the scratching, that when I heard that, which was even before I went up on Kill Tony, and then now as I reflect on it, I was like, oh, that's what I was doing for those years. Just the decision to try stand up in the first place, and then to actually try it in front of my friends in New York, and then to get something that worked, and then to try that and iterate on it, and then get to the point where I could do it in front of 200 people at the mothership. And then that episode eventually going out to millions of people, like that, I never would have expected that to happen in that way, but it did, just because of like the way things that worked out, you know,
because you scratched.
Yeah.
Is this your thing that you're fully leaning into, comedy?
Yeah. Yeah. For a while, I plan on this being like, I mean, some of my heroes are like people like Steve Martin, who, you know, they did comedy he did it for like 15 years, I think, and then just quit one day. to do movies because he felt like he reached the end of that. So maybe someday that'll happen for me too. But for the time being, like, this is my thing. This is what I mean, I love it. I think what's awesome about it for me, relative to what I was trying to do with movies before that, is it's a purely creative act. Like, now you need the audience there, but I guess the circumstances to make something and to do something are so low frills relative to doing something like making a movie, where you need so much front end investment. And that, like, the great thing about stand up is you just come up with something and you can go and do it that night. And even relative to something like music, when I was doing that before, like, you need you need to be a good musician before you even get to the part where you're writing and producing good songs. And then also, I was thinking about this earlier today for some reason. What I like about stand-up relative to music and relative to movies is I think that no one really knows what they're watching. And so the fact that no one really knows what they're watching and why stuff is working and why stuff isn't, I think gives you so much freedom to be purely creative. Because basically, if you start to get people laughing, they'll go with you wherever you go. But if someone's going to sit down to watch a movie, or they're going to listen to a song, they already know what music they like. They already know what movies they like. They know what the rules of those things are supposed to be. Like, if it's a song, they know there's supposed to be a chorus at some point and so on. With stand-up, you can do whatever you want as long as you continue to get people to laugh. And all you're doing is talking. So if you can say it, you can do it. And that is like, it's like having a pure creative ball in your hand. And that is so exciting to me, because I think it gives me so much freedom to work out what I would like to do as an artist. And eventually, and I don't know that I'm doing it yet, but eventually, I think because I have the pure creative power in my hands with this art form, I'll be able to get to the places that I want to, in terms of, like, bringing in the bigger themes, like getting to places that are meaningful. Because I have, like, infinite playground to play with to get there. And that's so fun to me. And I also like, and Jerry Seinfeld talks about this, you know when it's working, you know when it's not, because you get a grade every 10 seconds, if they laugh or they don't. So, like, that process of being able to work it out and seeing if you're getting to that place where you are getting that consistent laugh is like, that is the structure of the thing. But you have, so there's a clear mark that you have to hit, and that's the structure. That's what gives it the form. But your route to getting there is like formless, totally. That's so freeing, because you can get laughs in so many different ways, and people have, and people will. And that's what's fun about it. Your dog's really cute.
You know, I was going to say earlier, like an hour and a half ago when we first started, if dogs or pets normally gravitate towards you, because he sat right in front of you and he was just staring at you. But then when he finally laid down, I noticed he laid down more on your side than on my side.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, this is interesting. Do you have a dog?
No.
So it's not because he's smelling another animal. But yeah,
No.
I was just like, that's cool, dude. Just fucking abandon me while I'm trying to do my thing. And now he heard me. He's like, I didn't abandon you.
I love you too.
For those that are just listening on Spotify, he just attempted to jump up onto my lap, but this chair is way too small for you. It only fits me. Well, that's. I don't know how much weight this will or won't carry, but similar to the guy that shook your hand after that speech, I'm really excited to see where you go in the next couple years.
Okay.
Because there's just something about, sometimes when a friend tells me something that they're going to go do this thing, in my head, I'm like, are you?
Right.
But with you, I think you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I hope that you succeed. And I hope you keep getting, like, interesting life stories, because, I mean, Tony already said it, I'm no comedian, but I think what made me laugh out loud and made me want to invite you on was, a large part of it was your interview. I was just like, this guy's just good people. Yeah. And I like good people on the pod. But part of what was so funny about it was a real life story. So I hope life keeps happening to you and you can take whatever those incidents are and turn them into humor. And
thank you.
And if I do want to see a longer set from you too. So
yeah,
I'm going to come out and watch you Will you are you pretty good at announcing those on your Instagram, or do you not really?
No, I'm not. But I will say, so going forward, and this has been great because this is all momentum that has picked up since the Kill Tony thing, is I will be doing pretty much every week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Shakespeare's Pub. There's a show that runs from 8 to 10, and I'll be doing basically 10 minutes each of those nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll also be barking, quote unquote, out front on 6th Street. So you might see me out there basically trying to get people to come to the show, like, hey, live comedy, blah, 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 blah. And so you'll see me there, like, pretty much going forward. And then at Hotel Indigo, also downtown on Sundays, there's a show that runs, I think it's just started recently. I think it's going to run from 7 to 9 pretty much every Sunday. And that's hosted by a guy, Poppy Cannon, who's also really cool. Who I kind of met through Courtney too, which is, to go back to him, shout him out one more time. So I'll be doing those, and then I'm going to be doing, I mean, hopefully more in the future. At some point I'll sign up for Kill Tony again. And then, yeah, just trying to see where this all goes. And when I do get to a point where I am doing a lot more shows where I'm like, yeah, or anyway, I'll definitely will get into a habit of posting them.
Well, I just wrote them all down for my own purposes. So,
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll get some people together and we'll come out and we'll see you one of these weekends. Probably the Shakespeare's.
Yeah, Shakespeare's show is good. They're both great, but Shakespeare's is really fun. Thursday to Saturday. I think especially on the weekend they get really lively.
Is it up on the second floor?
It's on the second floor, which is actually where people sign up before Kill Tony and then hang out when their name gets drawn. So that's where I was when my name got pulled out of the bucket.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
This time has flown by.
Sure has.
Do we have time for me to ask you just like 2 or 3 sort of wrap up questions?
Yeah. I can stay I got nothing.
Till midnight?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got 20 more beers in the fridge. So
yeah.
there's enough drink to last us.
Marathon.
So there's something that Bill told me, and you also put on your form, and they may be unrelated, but I wanted to bring it up and just see where your response goes. So you had jotted down that you'd be willing to talk about what it's like to grow up and be alive today in 2026. Also how social media has affected everything. And Bill mentioned that he feels that you have some irony and frustration with how the world is currently.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about these things, and are they related or unrelated?
All right. This is great because this gives me the opportunity to talk about the real thing that I wanted to plug, which I'm not sure who this is going to resonate with, but hopefully someone out there finds this interesting. Okay, so there's this, first of all, just to shout out a couple of writers. There's this guy, Chuck Klosterman, who has written a couple of great books. Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs is one of them. The 90s is another one. He just wrote this other book called Football, which just came out, which I haven't read yet, but I can't wait to. And anyway, he's associated with the Ringer, like, podcast network. If anyone listening listens to the Ringer, and what he does is he's talking about pop culture as if it's serious, but then doing that analysis with, like, the irony that, like, in the same way, I don't know, it's so, like, snake eating its tail, but I think it's clear that pop culture drives our world. I think there's basically 2 things that drive our world, and it's pop culture and it's tech. In tech, basically no one understands, and it's going to determine everything. And then pop culture is what people do kind of understand, but not a lot of people put a lot of thought into. He, through talking, or maybe I was reading one of these books, at some point he referenced this essay called Within the Context of No Context. And it's this New Yorker article, either from the late 70s or early 80s, written by this guy, George W.S. Trow. And in this essay, he basically makes the point that since the age of mass media, which I guess maybe started with radio, but really with television in the 50s and beyond. It's called Within the Context of No Context because we basically lost our sense of history. And this played out in that, and you can find YouTube videos on this too. Like there's this one, I forget who did this YouTube video, but it's like talking about modernism versus metamodernism. This stuff all sounds really complicated, but I think once you try to digest it, like makes sense. The first movies that were made they didn't know what the art form was yet. So the only thing that they had to go on was their understanding of history. So the early Westerns and stuff like Citizen Kane is artists who grew up with novels and with the theater and then just with their own experience of history through newspapers and reading books and all that. They were just going based on their own life experience. And after that first decade or two, especially with television, everything became referential to itself. And so the TV shows, and especially true of TV, because they have to leave you wanting more so that you'd watch through the commercial break and all that. So they're basically giving you this cold, numb feeling of like, I'm going to continue to watch because I'm getting some sort of like numb, like there's a little bit of a dopamine kick from watching, but then as soon as it goes away, you're like, like what? Right? You don't gain anything from it. And in the essay, he makes this point. He makes a variety of points, but I'll just to simplify. It's like if the TV show is set in this old West town, well, the early movies that were Westerns actually were about the Old West. But now these TV shows are about our idea of the Old West. And then because like the tropes develop, everything becomes like referential to that. And so the sense of history is lost. The sense of personal experience is lost. And what what they're giving you at the end of the day, because everything is so formulaic, is just this idea of like continue watching. And what I think is amazing is that this guy pointed this out like in like circa 1980. Like it was either right before or right after. And I think it's just so much like, it's like, if only, I don't know if he's still alive, if only he could have lived to see where things would go, because that's basically like stuff like social media, TikTok took that formula of like the 30-minute mass media formula, distilled it down to 10 seconds, gives you absolutely nothing. So you'll keep watching the next reel. And I think it creates a couple of really distorting things, which is that, for one, you're not getting anything out of your experience with the media, which I feel like I have been able to experience things, whether they're great movies or great books, or you go see live music or something, that does give me something. But I think most experiences that people are getting leave you with nothing and are just designed to keep you hooked. And it's really frustrating to me because I think it wastes anyone's potential who is stuck in that loop. And I have been, and I still am in certain ways. So that's one side of it. I think the other side of it is that people get so much social benefit from accruing a following. And I think that if you go back to when mass media was first starting with movies and television, it's like someone becomes a famous actor or something like that. Well, you go, that experience that they get doesn't seem possible to you. Because it's like, well, like whatever, like that they're just over there and I'm over here. And now that it is legitimately possible for anyone to build a following and become famous, I think there are certain people who should go out and pursue their art and craft to the very highest level that they can, and then hopefully accrue a following through that so they can build something together with their audience. But the idea that you could become famous just kind of passively existing within you, probably is not good for society, because most people who are probably just like, they're not meant for that. They're meant to go be a doctor or a lawyer or an activist or just something where they're just going to be helping their local community that they know, or even if it's just to be like a good family member, just whatever it is. Like, the idea that someone out there is getting famous for doing something just stupid and like, oh, that guy has it so much better than me, or that girl has it so much better than me. Like, that hot girl has millions of followers just for posting pictures of herself, and she doesn't have to work. And here I am doing this thing that like sucks to me or whatever. And I think there's some level of that that's like, okay, well, maybe you can use that as inspiration to be like, I got to find what my thing is that does give me meaning. But I think that it has to be creating a passive, negative mental drain on so many people who are like, why am I working so hard for what is a really hard, that's what life is, that no matter what job you have, why am I working so hard and this person is doing nothing, it seems like, and they have so much. I don't think that that's good. So I think that, and you're not going to solve that through policy. You're not going to solve that. I mean, I don't know. Like, the only thing that's going to help people, I feel like, which is what I want to do with my art and with my career and doing things like this, is just to emphasize, like, no, there are ways for anyone to ground yourself in things that are meaningful. And that's going to be what, and I've read so many books on this, that I think have given that to me, who have inspired me to like really think about what matters to me and to focus on that. And I hope that message spreads. And and that's why I wanted to talk to you on this podcast, because it seemed like that's what you were doing. It's so important to me that message gets out there to people, because if you're not grounded in stuff that's more meaningful, then life is just like, because life is unfair. So if you don't have things to counterbalance that, then you're just lost and feel like you got the short end of the stick with like nothing to do about it. And I don't know how many people out there are feeling that, but it has to be more people than we even recognize. So I kind of got really passionate about that. Sorry, I didn't expect to do that.
Do not apologize for that. It made me think that I had a couple thoughts go through my head. One, I don't know if you know this or not, but 90% of podcasts stop recording somewhere between episode 3 and episode 20. And part of me wonders if it's directly related to what you just said, where people are starting this podcast because they want the fame or the followers or the attention or something to stroke their ego. And for me, I really didn't have any listeners for about the first 16 months.
Whoa.
So I was releasing an episode a week with no like tangible, like, why is he doing this?
Scratching.
I was scratching. Yeah. And now that I'm at where it's at now, you know, I still continue to do it. People might look at the YouTube page today and be like, oh, 500 subscribers. Why is he doing this for 3 years? And it's because of the teenagers that come up to me and say, hey, could I ask you a question about a relationship issue I'm having right now? Hey, I'm thinking about running away from home. Hey, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube page. Hey, I was having some very dark thoughts about suicide last year. That is why I do it, is because these teens have seen something in these stories, and then they see me in the gym, and they come up to me, and they're like, hey, I got a question for you. And it makes me want to ask the audience, if your Instagram following went from 2,000 people to 1 million people today, would that really change anything? Do you really think you'd get that fucking rush that makes you talk as passionately like you just did?
Right.
Is that going to do anything for your life?
Yeah.
Except just flood your inbox with dick pics and bots and who knows what else?
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't speak for people who are in that situation, but I mean, my feeling is that, yeah, I mean, if like, and there are certain people who get really successful, and they're the people that I look up to, um, like whether it's Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese, or if it's Norm Macdonald, like they got to where they got to because what they're doing is so important to them. And the success is nice and it enables them to keep going. But even when they get the success, they use that success to take another big risk and to do something that people wouldn't expect them to do. And I struggle about this because clearly there are people who are out there who get successful. I mean, there must be for just doing something. I don't know. Like, can you become successful without that attachment to what you're doing? Like, I'm sure you can, but I imagine that at some point it leaves you empty, whether that's just purely on the inside or whether you just basically like run out. Like, there are people who have long careers and there are people who have short careers. Like, I imagine that either you end up dead inside or what you're doing stops being successful because it's not attached to anything real. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
It is interesting that your parents are accountants because I've met some partners at public accounting firms who are making $500,000 plus a year. Some of the most miserable people I've met.
Yeah. Well, my parents fortunately got out of being public accountants. They found roles that I think are much more conducive to their personality. So even if the job sucks, like there's enough about it that, like my mom, which I think is funny, like she's basically self-employed, is a public speaker because if you're an accountant, you have to renew your license every so often to be a CPA. So she teaches the classes for that. So she goes across the country and then she also does webinars. So she's basically like in a way doing what I hope to be doing for a living, when it comes to public speaking and putting the content out there. And then my dad has worked in startups. So I mean, I guess my mom's self-employed, so she was also taking a risk, but my dad like has always been taking risks, I guess, to get to whatever he wants to go. So from that point of view, I feel like they both found things that like were conducive to who they were, so that I think like they don't, maybe in the way that you're describing these people who are making a ton of money doing public accounting, like I think they're both fortunate that they didn't end up hating themselves in that way. Because they found something that was a little bit better for them.
Good. I've noticed that whenever you gave a couple stories where someone challenged you in some way, shape, or form,
Sure.
and you rose up and you accomplished whatever the challenge was, and every single one of these stories that you told, you get fired up. Do you know where in life you need to be challenged currently?
Like, are you saying that you notice me getting fired up right now, or that in the story I get fired up?
I think you get fired up when you get challenged.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think I do love the idea of an impossible task. Sorry, ask your question again. At the very end of it.
Let me rephrase it. Well,
there's something about where am I getting challenged right now?
Let me phrase it this way. If your life was a movie, what would the audience be screaming at you to do right now?
Oh, wow. Okay. God, I wish I had a better answer for it because I wish I had something that was like an exciting reveal. All right, well, this is silly. And actually, it's the way in which movies are divorced from reality. Like, I think, like for example, so like this girl who I met and then went to Thailand and now she's back, but we haven't seen each other yet. Like in the movie, they end up together, but we're probably not. So there's some big like romantic gesture at that point that the male lead makes to like, and then that's, and then like the music swoons and blah blah blah. Um, but what I'm actually going to be doing is, okay, well, one, I've been waiting tables for a long time, and I think it was good for me because it forced me to do something that is like a normal like working class way of doing things, which I waited tables in college too, but from then till now, that was good for me because it forced me to, but I had the pleasure of interacting with people who came from a much wider variety of situations, which was the same kind of experience of going to Alaska and meeting those people. But I hate it. So I do have this opportunity right now where and this is another random occurrence, but I'm subscribed to Indeed, or I get notifications for them. And then they'll send an opportunity every week, like, hey, you might be interested in this, you might be interested in that. And finally, one came through where I was like, oh yeah, that. And it was this lady, her name's Erin Vargo, she's a ghostwriter of nonfiction books. Basically, she works with people who are really successful, who have a story to tell or something they want to say. And she helps them write that book. So, she sits down, she interviews with them for many hours, and then she takes those interviews, writes a book, and then she's been doing this for a long time. So she has contacts in the publishing industry to like get an agent, find a publisher, get that book out there and make it as successful as it can be. And she was looking for young people to train to do that same line of work, essentially because she witnessed people who were at her level or above even, who were starting to grow cynical about what the future of the industry is, through some combination of the way AI is going to affect things and also just kind of this late stage capitalism thing where rates start getting negotiated down to where it no longer becomes profitable to do this. So she works fully independently. That's her model, so that she can write a great book with a client at a lower price than they would pay if they went directly to a publisher. And then is basically through her entrepreneurial skills, able to shepherd that book to where it could be as successful as it can be. So she's taking this unique business model, business opportunity, to make it beneficial to both parties, the client and herself, to where the client has to pay a lower amount of money up front, and then she still gets to make money because she has skin in the game, essentially. So she wants to train young people to do that because people who are her age level and above are like the world is ending or whatever. So she wants to get people around her who are optimistic and still ambitious because they haven't gotten started yet. So apparently a bunch of people applied, and then fortunately I'm able to work with her now. So right now I am out looking for clients to do that. So if you happen to be listening and that sounds interesting to you, find me, DM me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about it. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm hopeful that this is going to work out. Where basically I'll be writing books that I think are really exciting during the day, and then doing stand up at night. So that's kind of like in between the comedy momentum that already started with Kill Tony, where I get to do these shows at Shakespeare's and Hotel Indigo, and then now this ghostwriting thing. Like I'm thankful for the time that I had waiting tables, but I am ready for it to be done. And so that's what the next act of the movie is about, I think.
You're getting closer to your ikigai. You know what that is?
No, I don't, but
it's this Japanese concept of where you find what you're passionate about
okay.
that also serves the community.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
yeah.
can also make money on.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting the fourth dimension.
Oh, no, that's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, like, would I pick ghostwriting books in a vacuum? No. But
sure.
But because of the ikigai, yeah, no, I'm totally about it. Like, that sounds so fun to do now. For as long as it makes sense to. So hopefully I can write some great books over the next several years, and like you said, yeah, help other people get their dreams out there. That's the helping the community aspect of it. So
hell yeah. What is there anything else specifically that you wanted to riff on tonight that we haven't touched on yet?
Can I give some movie suggestions?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll kind of stick within the main genre that I would like to make movies in one day, which is kind of this like entertaining, humorous, but also like has a spiritual core to it. That it just in some way makes you think about what life is and why it's worth living. And the first one is It's a Wonderful Life. Very famous
So
Christmas
good.
movie. I watch it every year. Sometimes I watch it multiple times a year. I have a big poster of it in my room. Movie's very, very dear to me, and my family too, like because we watch it together every year. So It's a Wonderful Life. There's a movie that I think is kind of, I don't know if they were conscious of this, but the Coen brothers, they took a similar concept in like doing this kind of like philosophical what does life mean movie, and they made this movie called A Serious Man, and it's about this Jewish physicist living in a Jewish community in the 60s in Minnesota, which is similar to the community that the Coens grew up in themselves. And he's a professor of physics, so he understands that life is uncertain and kind of random. And so there's a scene where he's literally on a chalkboard mapping out the uncertainty principle. So he understands that intellectually, but spiritually, life starts hitting him in the face. So like his wife wants to divorce him, and then more and more things like that start happening. So even though he knows that life is random and chaotic, the fact that life is hitting him in the face, even though he feels like he's a good person, seems unfair. And so he sees three rabbis over the course of the movie as more and more things start happening to him. And the movie doesn't really like give you an answer, but that's the whole point. But it does give you something. Like it leaves you feeling like, oh, like I felt whatever that was. So that's my second rec. Groundhog Day. If people haven't seen Groundhog Day, love that movie because I love Harold Ramis and Bill Murray movies in general, and I think that's the one where they, especially Harold Ramis, I think got to like say what he really wanted to say. I know that there was a screenwriter for that movie too, so I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'd like to give him credit. Those three, I'll just leave it at that. I would like to make a movie like those ones, or like Good Will Hunting too. I like the monologues in that, or just like the fact that I talk about scratching again. That the famous story that Matt Damon he wrote that as a one-act play for his college class, and the professor was like, I think you have something here. And then he spent the next several years working on it with Ben Affleck to get it to where it was. And then the screenplay went through so many iterations, and they talk about how it was the first thing on their minds when they woke up, and it was the last thing on their minds when they went to bed. And there were points at which, and you can go read all about this yourself, or find an interview where they talked about it, whatever. There were serious points where it seemed like the movie wasn't going to get made. But then they kept believing that it would happen. They said no to opportunity. It was similar to the Rocky story, where like Sylvester Stallone at one point had to buy back his screenplay so that he could make it. That idea of if you have something like that for you, like go all in. Don't let other people take it away from you. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I'm definitely going to watch A Serious Man because
it's so good.
It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorites. I also watch it at least once a year. Groundhog Day, I probably watch once every few years.
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting, also once every few years.
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting being the one I haven't seen in the longest time. And I actually think I forget most of it at this point. It's about time for a rewatch.
It's not your fault.
No, it is not my. I've been busy. I've been watching The Pit. Shout out that show if you're into medical shows.
Woo.
But A Serious Man, I'm very intrigued.
No, yeah, that's definitely the lesser known one between the four. A great movie.
I remember one time when I was living with my sister during COVID, I walked into the family room in the middle of the summer, and she had A Wonderful Life on it. I was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I couldn't wait till Christmas. I had to watch it again." I'm like,
yeah, no, because it's just a great movie. It's just a great movie.
Trevor, this has been so much fun. What I really liked about this is, and I hope you don't mind me calling this out, and I could be wrong, But when we first started talking, your hands were quivering a little bit. You seemed like you were nervous. And over the last however long it's been, being able to see you settle into yourself and your confidence come out, and you got excited to tell stories, and it was just so cool to watch you transition from like nervous Trevor to
I felt
like
that too. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because there's a difference between like projecting the image that you think that you want of yourself versus just settling in. Yeah.
Yes.
I felt that too.
Well, I am getting out my phone for a reason. I'm not just distracted. Have something that I would like to play you to end this thing.
Okay, great.
So before we do, we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. We're going to hold it for 7 seconds. And then we're going to do an 8-second breathe out. And then I'm going to play it for you.
Okay.
And you can close your eyes while I play this for you, okay?
All right.
All right, here we go. 4 seconds in, 7-second hold, 8 seconds out.
Dear Trevor, now might be an odd and regrettable time to tell you this, but my real name is actually Leonard J. Finkelstein. Yes, that one. You've always called me Bill, and while I never felt like correcting you, after all these years, I just wanted to get that out of the way. I want this letter to be a reminder to you about why your art is important, in case you ever forget or find yourself discouraged. But, as you're painfully aware, the inner notions and values that inform your exterior aspirations are often an order of magnitude more complex than they appear. So for clarity, allow me to lift the Straussian veil off terms like comedy and film for a moment and explain what I think you're actually trying to do and why it's so cool. You once told me that it was your goal to write stories that make the audience realize they are the story, not in a feel-good, Hallmark family movie way, but in a much more serious sense. I think what you actually meant was that one can attempt to discover and exhibit existential meaning using narrative. A good story is one that makes people aware of the meaning surrounding them, and while that meaning can be felt strongly as a force, like gravity, it is still metaphysically indefinite. Just like how light passes through the double slit in a wave state, only to collapse into light particles as soon as the quantum phenomenon is observed. The narrative of one's life, the past and what's to come, has an entirely different metaphysical weight only when one checks for it. Of course, it's sometimes easier to not look because either result could be terrifying. It's true that nothing matters, but it's also equally true that everything does. And that's a pretty hilarious pickle to be in. Your comedy is a vehicle to explore greater questions about reality and how we assemble ourselves as people, and we're sorely in need of that. As the great George Santos once said, no artist tolerates reality. Wait, on second thought, I think that might have been Nietzsche. In any case, keep going, keep cultivating your perspective and philosophies, keep questioning reality in your own hilarious way. In your comedy and your writing, you're beginning to sound like yourself, and that is a very rare and powerful thing. Push the boundaries maximally, as if meaning itself is on the line, because it is. And I think I speak for everyone who knows you and loves you when I say we're all very excited to see what you create in this life. Your friend always, signed, Leonard J. Finkelstein, Esquire.
I bet he did that in one take, is the thing. Oh, no way. No way. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is great. You know what's great about this, actually, is that my room is only semi-decorated, and I basically only decorate it with things that people give me. So,
Hell yeah.
so this is a great one. This is going right up on the desk somewhere.
What was going through your head? What does that letter mean to you?
Well, okay. I mean, so maybe people picked up on this already through what we were saying, but I mean, I talked to Bill on the phone for like literally hours every week. And without him, and without other people in my life too, but especially without him, because he isn't willing to indulge me, which I tell him all the time, like, because I recognize that like we're just talking about the things that I'm interested in, which he's interested in too, but like he has a full-time job and all of that. So he sits with me and he'll go so granular with me, trying to figure out how the stuff that I'm reading and experiencing connects to the stuff that we have watched and loved together, and what we could, because he helps me. He legitimately helps me. Like before I went on Kill Tony, like we sort of break down like, is this the right thing to wear? Is this the right joke? Like, so I was going to tell a different joke before. I was going to do like a one-liner right before I went on, and it was really silly. But you won't even laugh. Who am I? Why am I here? That's how Admiral Stockdale opened the 92 vice presidential debate. So I was going to do that and then get into the whole like DoorDash thing. And he was like, nah, don't do that. Don't do that. Just get right into it. And so he gives me the confidence and the insight when it comes to like actually going and doing something. But then also, I mean, he was touching on like the whole like meaning and like why this is important thing. Like, I feel like the reason why what I'm doing has any legs at all is because that I think that we're trying to together, me and Bill and whoever else I have these types of conversations with, get to a place where we find like what is like the real like grounding like principles of reality and life and what we're trying to do. And I think without being able to work that out on the phone with him, and then when I see him in person, I wouldn't be able to do this. So this was going through my head, and then I was laughing because the George Santos thing is perfect. It's so on brand for him. Yeah.
And I have to ask, what is this? Can I see this real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Who is this Leonard J. Finkelstein? Is that an inside joke between you two, or is that because I googled the name and I didn't really see any results that seemed to make any sense.
You know what's amazing is I don't know.
So maybe he just made it up.
It must be in reference to something, but I have no idea.
So one more laugh for you before we end this. What I love about this is sometimes I'll get these random messages that hit my inbox. And I'm like, what is this? And I had someone named Mary reach out to me.
His mom?
Yep.
Okay.
And she asked me to read you this.
Oh, no.
Trevor, remember that time you projectile vomited on me in the basement of 3301?
Yeah.
I didn't love that moment.
Uh-huh.
You are a world-class rascal. And you are also brilliant, and it's wonderful to watch you succeed. Keep on going. We are praying for you. Best, Bill's mom.
That's very sweet. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, I have the visual of when it did in their laundry room in the basement. Sorry.
Sorry. Sorry. Trevor, this was so good. Thank you so much for all the stories that you brought to the table tonight. I really appreciate it. To the audience, do me a favor. If you enjoyed this podcast today, you're a partner in the show in a sense. So please go hit that subscribe button and help us spread it to whatever 16, 17, 18-year-old is out there that maybe they're going through some sort of transition like Trevor was, where they thought they were going to do this sports thing and now they're not, and now they felt like they lost their whole identity and maybe they just need to start scratching. Trevor did his job. He showed up. He told the story. I did my job. I hosted the podcast. Now please do your job, which takes 5 seconds of your time and none of your money. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button. If you're in town and you want to meet Trevor and see him do his thing, he is at Shakespeare's Thursdays through Saturday from 8 to 10. He is at Hotel Indigo on Sundays. Laughter is literally medicine. We should all be doing more of it. And that's why I love having comedians on the show and supporting you guys, is because you're giving us something that we so desperately need right now. So to you, thank you for making us laugh. We need it. And that's it. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.